war, health, and spotlighting. Spot some breaking stories. Okay. Right. Let's get into it.
Here in Al Ubaid, new families are still arriving, fleeing the fighting with nowhere to go. But
Folks, one thing to note, yesterday when we covered Myanmar, Sudan, DRC, these are all very lightly covered topics in mainstream media. So please, like, continue to pay attention, continue to keep abreast of all of these different conflicts, because they are all caused by the same system, the same system of oppression. So we've got to be mindful, and we've got to witness all of these things.
other people have been seeking refuge in this city from towns like Bara, which was recently been retaken by the army. They are waiting for the moment they can finally return home. Hundreds of thousands of displaced people are seeking refuge in the city, though it's been mostly under siege by the paramilitary rapid support forces. Every tent here has its own story. They include families like Hanan and her daughters who fled Bara in North Kordofan.
RSF fighters stopped us, harassed us, and intimidated us in front of our daughters. They took our phones, and then we fled.
Red 9 Actual, thank you so much for the follow. Welcome.
We are just
Hey,
civilians.
Doug. Welcome, Doug.
We don't belong to any side. The journey took us 3 days. They harassed our daughters and accused them of being soldiers' wives. They took whatever they had and touched their breasts while using obscene language. They also took their phones. We brought them out with us because we wanted to protect them.
One thing I want you to understand about Sudan that shows how the West is involved in all of these things, how our governments in the West are involved, is the most interesting thing about the proxy war in Sudan is that the RSF at one stage killed so many people in El Fasher, so many people in El Fasher that you could see pools of blood from space. Like they have mass murdered people, right? And yet the rapid support forces who continue to commit mass atrocities across Sudan have not been prescribed as a terrorist organization from any Western nation. There's been no prescription. They have, hands down, done more killing, done more executions than any country, than Hamas, than the Houthis or the IRGC or whoever else the West is labeling terrorist organizations. They've been around and done so much harm for such a long time, yet not one Western nation has prescribed them. What you got to understand is terrorism is used as a weapon against organizations that are fighting against Western interests. So from that, all I can gather is that the RSF committing atrocities in Sudan are committing it on behalf of the West. Otherwise, they would have been a terrorist organization the moment they started killing people. But they still aren't. And the other signal that they are working for Western interest is the fact that any sanctions on the RSF has been individualized, just like sanctions on Israeli settlers have been individualized, on settler organizations and things like that, instead of the state of Israel itself, right? Or the IDF itself, or, RSF equals UAE equals Dubai equals America and the West. Toffees. The UAE is, again, a third party supplying the RSF, but Dubai gets its weapons mostly from the West. So we got to understand what's happening here is happening on behalf of the West.
She says they hope to go back to Bara one day as long as it's safe enough for her children.
We will return to our town only if the situation improves, if we see transport services returning to the town, if the court is operating and the schools have reopened, then we will go back.
And the next 10 to Zuhur. She fled from Al-Fashir in Darfur in October 2025 after months of fighting and a devastating RSF offensive for thousands from the city.
Thank God we are managing, but it is nothing like our town and nothing like our homes, not at all. I have 8 children here, God help us. When a father is not with his family, we need so many things, and we cannot afford them. We cannot work. There are no jobs so we can earn money and provide for our children. We are
Yeah, I've covered DRC many times before, yes.
sitting here in tents, not knowing where to go or what to do.
Muhammad Musa was displaced from South Kordofan. He leads part of this camp and has organized the community kitchen to help feed families.
Hey Lisa, welcome. Kia ora, everybody.
We left our areas
welcome.
empty, houses abandoned, with only the trees left behind. There is no one there. But here in El Obeid, we have organized ourselves through our community groups, tribal leaders and local administrations. We have mobilized some of our young people to go back and help serve our communities there.
But for many people here, the way to return to their homes is likely to grow more difficult. Millions are already struggling to get enough to eat, and low rainfall means harvest season is unlikely to bring relief. Al-Miqdad al-Ruhayd Al-Jazeera, Sudan's North Kordofan state.
Wow. There's this one as well. Some very small bits and pieces.
The food
rolling in.
insecurity inside this overcrowded camp in Al Obeid is a reflection of Sudan's wider hunger crisis. The UN's WFP estimate that almost 19.5 million people across Sudan are facing a crisis levels of hungers. And for families who have only just arrived, the needs is even
How are you,
more
Marit?
immediate.
We can't even find one meal here in the camp. Back home, before we were displaced 2 days ago, we used to eat 3 meals a day. This is our breakfast now, late in the afternoon. Where are we supposed to get our next meal from? This food itself is a blessing from God. We have fled our homes with only the clothes we were wearing, and we have no work here. I have orphan children to look after.
We had been relatively stable, to be honest. But over the past week, we saw an unexpected wave of displacement following attacks by RSF. Around 1,000 families, about 6,000 people have arrived at the Unified Shelter Center in Al Obeid. They urgently need basic assistance, shelter, food and drinking water.
So even one meal can make a real
Kaki
difference,
Fudge,
especially
take care.
for
Salam.
those families who have left
It was good to
everything
see you,
behind.
Fudge.
But
Come back.
with more people
Come back
arriving here
soon.
in Al Obeid
We miss
every
you.
day, the pressure is real and the need keeps growing. And so does the pressure on those trying to provide those families with food. Al-Miqdad al-Ruhayd Al-Jazeera, Sudan's North Kordofan state.
Let's check out displacement food crisis. We will be covering. We will be covering the Ebola outbreak in the DRC today as well.
Taylor is the head of operations at the Norwegian Refugee Council. He says people fleeing the conflict are trapped in a spiral of worsening food insecurity, repeated displacement, and lost livelihoods.
The situation across Sudan right now is utterly devastating. And the journeys that some of these families are taking to find some safety, some stability, and the little assistance that can be provided. These journeys are incredibly arduous. They're dangerous. They're across front lines at times and include crossing international borders. There are about 13 million displaced outside of Sudan, and most of these are taking refuge in neighbouring countries like Chad, like South Sudan, which are grappling with their own issues. The level of assistance that can reach people in these displacement sites is drastically insufficient to the needs. There are massive gaps in shelter, in education, health, and most critically, food supplies, where people simply don't have enough to eat. We've had stories from families who are making really heartbreaking decisions. I met a woman in North Darfur recently who essentially had left her children behind
How long have I been
to
streaming?
pay
20
enough money
minutes, Marek.
to get some transport
20
to a nearby
minutes.
town in the hope of finding some work, to then be able to pay transporters to bring her family and her children back with her. People are selling whatever assets they still have, taking any work. We've had stories of really, really heartbreaking situations of people having to make heart-rending decisions simply to find enough food. And the reason you're seeing a lot of this cyclical displacement of families moving from site to site and over these borders is on the hunt for stability and is on the hunt for some type of food assistance.
Fuck, man. It's getting out of hand. And we're not even talking about, you add a lot of these Sudanese people as well. There are many of them who are trying to cross the Mediterranean and drowning too. So their suffering really doesn't end. Their suffering really doesn't end at all. It just continues and continues and continues. And it's being done at the hands of the West. Like, that's the fucked up thing. It's Western domination again. And it's doing it through proxies so that the West can claim plausible deniability. Not only that, the West is causing all of this mass displacement, and at the same time, you have Europe chanting, "Send them back," at the European Commission. At the EU Commission, EU Parliament. Sorry, they're chanting, "Send them back." They're creating this displacement because they want to take resources from Sudan. They want that land. Sudan has incredible farmland too, like very rich in nutrients. You can farm anything there. And all of this stuff is being stolen again. UAE being the main perpetrator, but funded by the West. And you'll see people like David Lammy. You'll see people like other European leaders taking pictures with the leader of the UAE. America is shameless, so yeah, of course America's involved. America's always involved in this sort of oppression. How can it not be? Hey, Street Smarts, welcome. Hey, Scars, welcome in, everybody. We're going through a bunch of reports on war, just getting updated. Last night, I finished on Myanmar, the Myanmar documentary, but now we're continuing on from where we left off. Welcome, everyone. And Shanna, 45 stream streak. Well done. You need to put your clothes back on, okay? Stop streaking so much. Jeez.
Take on something that we heard out of Iran. Iran's president today saying it would be better if the war would just end now, while Tehran is in a position of strength. When you hear those comments, especially as there are some indications, right, that Iran may be starting to feel a bit of this economic squeeze from the U.S., how do you read not only those comments from the president, but the decision to put them out now?
I think both parties are in a stalemate right now, and I know they're all kind of making motions. The United States is trying to apply some economic pressure. Iran continues to close the Straits of Hormuz, putting economic pressure on the United States, and basically firing missiles at our allies in the Arab world. Both are hoping the other side will give. I don't see that happening. Our intelligence makes clear that economic pressure alone is not going to have Iran be willing to come to any kind of agreement on ending the war. And so what I see right now is a prescription for a prolonged war that's going to continue and will continue to, frankly, hurt the United States economically, but also in terms of our strength in the world. The rest of the world is looking at the situation in Iran, and what they see is the possibility of another lost war. That would really hurt credibility of America in the world that we're dealing with, which is very dangerous.
Secretary Leon Panetta, always appreciate your insight and your perspective. Thank you.
China is responding to President Trump's new threat against Iran, which includes imposing economic penalties on any country doing business with Iran. Beijing's foreign ministry spokesperson says sanctions and pressure tactics are not the solution. Iran, for its part, is vowing to prosecute and imprison anyone who carries out President Trump's so-called economic D-Day.
I remember you talking about your brother a few weeks ago. Have you ever contacted him since? Why would I contact him, man? Like, it's fucking shameful, number one, that he doesn't talk about genocide. I know who he is. I speak to him. I've spoken to him enough about many different things to understand who he is. Why would I need to talk to him?
Against Tehran. It comes after the president vowed to impose the most crushing economic operation ever taken against any country and demanded that other countries stop doing business with Iran. Joining me now, CNN senior military analyst, retired Admiral James Stavridis. Thank you so much for being here. Look, this is part of the president's new strategy to crush Iran financially as opposed to bombing Iran constantly. Is this strategy one that appears to be a better choice?
It's the best of a bunch of bad options, Sarah, meaning the president could go back to full-blown hostilities, drop lots and lots of bombs. That's very expensive, both in terms of finance for the munitions themselves and...
You have Norway preaching sanctions, but also buying 21 million in Elbit and surveillance to their research training. Yeah, man. I can't believe any Western nation. I'll never believe any Western nation. They're all fucking frauds and liars.
Potentially the cost of our brave...
Hello, Candace. How are ya? How are you, Candace? Welcome.
Men and women in arms. So, bad option. He could also simply wash his hands of this, no pun intended, given the maritime character, and walk away from it. Again, really bad option. So what's he left with? Essentially what you see right now, which is a blockade along the Iranian coastline. You're showing about 1,000 miles of Iranian coastal ports. They're all under blockade. From all I can see, the Navy's doing a reasonably good job at this. It's putting pressure on Tehran. Final thought brings us to the present.
Yeah, we're doing well, thank you. We are doing well. Hope everything is all chill on your side. It's good to see you. Welcome.
Moment, it's not enough to make it happen quickly. So now he is trying to enlist the rest of the world to step in and be part of this blockade. I think that's going to be problematic, and China is only the first country that's going to decline the honor of being part of the blockade of Iran.
All right, I do want to ask you about what's happening in the seas there. Given your expertise, the USS George Washington has arrived to replace the USS Abraham Lincoln in the region, and I know you've seen all this reporting, as have we have, of families and sailors saying that they were suffering serious difficulties with food, mental capacity there on the USS Abraham Lincoln. They have dealt with shortages, supply shortages, and endured a historically long deployment. What changes here? Will it still be quite difficult to make sure that this ship doesn't face those same kinds of issues?
This is exactly the issue, Sarah, that the Navy is pulling apart right now in terms of the Abraham Lincoln situation. What went wrong? Clearly very stressful deployment for the crew. The crew performed magnificently. I think they'll be recognized for this long, arduous deployment, but it's not how it's supposed to work. They're supposed to have good food, hot showers, toilets that work, opportunity to get a break from the front line. None of that happened. So what happened and why? Navy looking at it. here's something not widely reported. The Iranians were able to take out a big chunk of the logistics that support these big carriers. They struck the central logistic hub in Bahrain very early in the conflict. So what has changed is the Navy has backfilled those logistic chains. And I think our sailors on board the GW, the George Washington, are going to have a much better cruise. We all ought to salute the Abraham Lincoln as they sail home from a very tough stretch in war.
Admiral, it's always good to have you here to talk us through these things with your expertise. Thank you so much and have a good weekend.
Colonel Layton, President Trump.
Oh, there she is. That's her from Blinken's government. She's got blood on her hands too. Send her to The Hague. Can we send her to The Hague as well?
Has now threatened, as you know, a so-called economic D-Day against Iran, vowing, and I'm quoting him now, tremendous economic consequences against countries that continue to do business with Iran. Do you have a sense of what that entails? And would that include, for example, punishing countries that send medical supplies, food, other essentials to Iran?
Yeah, if it does, it would certainly broaden the scope of the sanctions against Iran, because medical supplies had previously been exempt from those kinds of sanctions. One of the key things I think to think about here, Wolf, is that if the sanctions aren't coupled with methods to cut off supplies to Iran, such as the rail links that go into Turkmenistan.
Man, they're still so, like, they're still trying to ideate how to fuck up Iran. Think about this. This is across the board. This is liberal media. This is MAGA media. Everyone is still like trying to come up with a way to fuck up Iran. Just how deranged and violent and supremacist this whole fucking structure is. I hope it's becoming clearer for all of you. There is no value for life here. There is no value for life. They don't care, and it's across the board. It's not just the Republicans, Democrats too. Like, these idiots are still theory crafting how to kill more Iranian people. They're theory crafting how to murder more Iranian people. Sick.
Which then connect to the Russian rail system and the Chinese rail system. If those rail links aren't cut off, those sanctions may not have very much of an effect. The Iranians are very much used to surviving sanctions, and they're very much used to being able to basically do without the kinds of things that the rest of the world really thinks about and really uses. So it's going to be critical, if they impose these sanctions, it's going to be critical to have some significant actions taken both on the military front as well as the economic front to be effective.
If the U.S. were to impose sanctions against countries, whether Russia, China, or other countries that would now would be refusing to send food or medical supplies, medical equipment to Iran, would that be considered a war crime?
Potentially, yes, because under the modern rules of warfare, you don't cut off food supplies for civilian populations. In the past, that was done, in major conflicts like World War II, you had incidents where they did cut off food supplies. But in the modern way of doing warfare, that would be considered potentially a war crime, and it could also impact the way in which other countries respond to the U.S., because I think there would be a large international outcry against such a move.
Let's turn to Jasmine El-Gamal, who's a former Middle East advisor at the US Defense Department and CEO of Avros Strategies, a geopolitical analyst group. She also hosts the podcast, The View from Here, and she joins us now in London. Jasmine, great to see you. Look, so many things for us to get into here. I want to begin, I guess, with the rhetoric that we've heard in the past 24 hours and the fact that Donald Trump is facing...
Like, think about how harsh TikTok was on me. Think about how harsh TikTok was on me, Marat. And now think about all the groups you go to, all the different lives you see, and think about how they behave. Like, I got fucked up by TikTok for so long. And just think about all the conversations you hear on TikTok, and TikTok does nothing. You will understand how unfairly treated I was. That's why I'm not, like, too concerned, because fuck it. I played a video that was posted on TikTok, and it was a black comedian. He used the N-word a couple of times, and I didn't even play the video on TikTok. You could only hear the video on TikTok, and it banned it, and that was the hateful shit that got my account banned permanently.
Criticism for his comment to bomb Iran, but also questions as to why he would choose to do such a thing. Just take a quick listen to this.
Oman has been a security partner of ours and are critical in any kind of negotiation we're going to have with the Iranians. So if Donald Trump thinks he's going to find a way out of this, and I certainly hope that he does, I think the Oman is a critical negotiator with Iran. So it doesn't make a ton of sense. I mean, it looks like he's trying to just make more enemies, and that's not a strategy.
It's so crazy, Candace. Like I can't catch a break on TikTok. Every time I go there, even this smallest, like even if I showed an image, it would just give me a restriction. They were so on me, and fuck it. Who cares? They didn't want me on their platform, so I won't go back. Yet.
Well, why Donald Trump chose to threaten Oman is still kind of unclear today. The question is, how damaging could this be for the Trump administration? Because we're at a time when the US are failing to make inroads in negotiations with Iran, and this appeared to be the only diplomatic channel that was working.
Well, I guess I would argue with you there. I would say that it's fairly clear why President Trump is saying what he's saying about Oman, and that is he's incredibly frustrated. This war with Iran has not gone the way that he thought it would, or that he was told that it would by its proponents. And it's been, it's going nearly to 6 months now with no seeming end in sight. And so understandably, the president is frustrated. Many would argue that that it's due to his own decision making that we are at this point in time. But it is not a credible threat in any sense. It doesn't appear to be a credible threat, I would say. The reason I say that is because he's made these kinds of statements before. He's talked about bombing Oman before. He's talked about bombing, I don't remember the exact terms, but when he talked about erasing civilization in Iran, he's prone to these kinds of bombastic statements when he's feeling frustrated. And I think that's what you saw there.
Yeah, and I think a reflection of his frustration could also be seen perhaps in the image that Donald Trump posted on his social media earlier today, showing the Strait of Hormuz labeled as new US territory. I mean, even given that, how do you think this will be, or an image like that will be received, especially by, Gulf allies?
Well, look, I mean, he did the same with Greenland, and we went through that whole, that whole play as well back then. It's meant to provoke. It's meant to provoke some sort of reaction, move the needle somehow. Some would argue that's not the best way to move forward in a negotiation. The Gulf allies are going to, our Gulf allies are going to continue doing what they've been doing, which is trying to reach the president behind the scenes and let him know that A, what he's doing is not helpful, and B, what everyone needs to do in the region right now is turn down the temperature. And so you are seeing diplomatic efforts ongoing.
I'm over people explaining for Trump why he was an asshole. Yeah.
Never really
hey,
stopped.
Zilla, welcome.
Whether it's the Qataris, the Turks, the Pakistanis, or the Omanis, those conversations have been ongoing, both amongst one another and with Iran as well. So you'll continue to see that happening behind the scenes. When I speak to Gulf officials, the message is the same. This is the region that we are living in. We are bearing the brunt of this, and we will have to find a way to coexist and move forward. And so that's what you'll see happening behind the scenes, trying to get President Trump to understand that diplomacy really is the only way through this. And echoing General Kane, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, leaning on military action over and over again and expecting a different result, is not very, General Kane didn't use these words, but it's not very rational.
Yes, and I mean, of course, Iran are watching all of this very closely, and we saw today that Iran
totally,
are
Amandrea.
doubling down, issuing a list of demands that the US need to fulfill before Tehran reopens the strait, calling again for the US to commit to the terms of the MOU. But as we saw yesterday, of course, that 60-day deadline passed without any agreement, and we heard Donald Trump saying that he was in no hurry. Where does that leave us with the MOU? Does it render it meaningless? Is it dead? What's the view?
Right. So the MOU, the time period has passed in which the two parties were supposed to negotiate on broader issues like the nuclear program and so on. And it is unclear whether there will be a new MOU negotiated between the US and Iran. I think the US focus right now is on getting the strait opened and relieving that economic pressure. As you know, the US midterms are around the corner, and President Trump is now facing a 33% approval rating.
Welcome in, everybody. Welcome in. It's great to have all of you here. We're going through the war section of the live. We've got a fair bit to cover. We've got health, and I'm going to be spotlighting a few different things. So welcome in. It's good to have you here.
Really by far the lowest of his 2 terms, I believe. And so the pressure is on the US in that sense. However, the pressure is also on the Iranians. Now, the Iranians are maximizing their demands. They are saying that they will go on the offensive now and not just remain in defensive mode. But they have also been under severe economic pressure. In fact, they started this war going into it under economic pressure and heavy protests from within the Iranian population. So it remains and continues to be this war of timelines, this game of chicken to see who will blink first. Both sides are obviously trying to maintain maximum pressure on the other, while both hurting to various degrees themselves. And so this is where, again, you will see those diplomatic efforts that I talked about earlier.
Has Canada done a trade deal with Iran yet? Oh, you guys remember how we were talking about Carney and like it was breaking news at the time when it fell over. So it turns out that America was trying to stop Canada from doing deals with other countries. And Carney didn't say which one, but I suspect it's China. I suspect America wanted Canada to pull out of the China trade deal. And Canada said, heck no. And that's where the deal fell over. I can guarantee you it's that. America doesn't want Canada to trade with China at all. Yeah, I think it's just going to keep heating up. It's bad because Donald Trump is his ego isn't letting him you take this loss, but I honestly, it was about they wanted to lock Canada into only a deal with the US and whoever they approve. So yeah, of course Canada wasn't going to sign on to that, man. If Carney signed on to that, you were signing away your sovereignty. Like, why would you do that?
Really trying to bridge that gap between the two sides and try to get them back in some form, whether directly or indirectly, to the negotiating table to try to come to an end to this war that's hurting everyone in the region.
Joining me now, Army Colonel Peter Mansour. He's a former aide to General David Petraeus and a professor of military history at Ohio State University. It's good to have you with us. So when
Chinese cars could ruin American car companies. Yeah, I mean, but free market capitalism, right? Like neoliberalism. Yeehaw, let's go. Good day. We're all about free market capitalism in America here. Except when it comes to those pesky Chinese. God dang. God dang pesky Chinese. I tell you what. Them and their EVs. I don't want no batteries in my goddamn car. I want my car to drink oil. You hear me? 20, 30 liters a day. I want my car to be addicted to goddamn oil. Not batteries, oil. So get them goddamn Chinese out of America, thank you. We don't need no Wuhan in America. You hear me? Like the Chinese hate that Chinese EVs look really good. Yeah. By the way, that was parody. That's not how I usually sound. That was a parody of a MAGA Trump guy who owns a ranch. Okay? Who owns a ranch and has a son named Cletus.
Look at where things stand. President Trump's inconsistency comes as Qatar is now voicing support for Oman's talks with Iran. This despite threats from President Trump to ban Oman over the Hormuz dispute. And notably, those negotiations were a requirement of the MOU, which the president once hailed. Do these threats from Trump risk excluding the U.S. from the shaping of any agreement on the strait?
The threats are absolutely not helpful. They're typical Trump bluster. He doesn't like being excluded from these negotiations, and he doesn't know what Oman and Iran are agreeing to. And if it includes
that's your true voice. This Kiwi stuff is an impression. Oh, I promise. Oh man, I don't know. You talk like that fairly often. Might be your true accent. Wow. Everybody, what's going on? I am not a MAGA dude with a ranch. And a son named Cletus, okay? Please.
their control over the Strait of Hormuz and the ability of Iran to exact tolls. He's not going to have any part of that. And thus he has struck out in the way he knows.
Where are you secretly leading us? Oh yeah, all the Cletus segments are little suggestions. They're trying to get you excited about Trump's third term.
With typical bluster and threats that probably will not be acted upon.
In terms of bluster, he also posted this image, I think we can put it up for you, of the Strait of Hormuz, labeling it as new U.S. territory. How much does that further complicate things?
It doesn't complicate things at all. Everyone knows this is not true. I think it's pushback against Iran, which claims the strait as its own territory. And he says, okay, well, two can play that game. We'll claim it as well.
So there we are.
Reopening the Strait of Hormuz?
In fact, it's an international waterway. I think all sides need to agree on that. But that's one of the problems with these negotiations. Iran wants to control the strait. And until it agrees that it's an international waterway, I don't think we're going to come to any sort of diplomatic solution to this crisis.
In the Oval Office yesterday, Trump reiterated his goal for this war was to keep Iran from having a nuclear weapon. In terms of what you see, is the U.S. military strategy right now doing anything to prevent Iran from having a nuclear weapon?
Well, it's done quite a bit. I mean, it's hit the Iranian nuclear facilities, its manufacturing plants. It has really set back its nuclear program. Ironically, I think negotiations on the nuclear program are probably easier at this point than negotiations on opening the strait. Iran has made it its goal in life to control the Strait of Hormuz, which it views as its only leverage against the United States and our allies to prevent another attack on Iran. The nuclear program, the Iranian nuclear program, isn't going anywhere quickly. We all know that they want to gain a nuclear weapon eventually, but that can be stymied in the future by further action.
I also wanted to ask you about the Houthis, so a proxy of Iran, right, in Yemen, now claiming an attack on a Saudi oil refinery.
Trump actually has to survive this term to try and get a third term. I just want to read you guys something, okay? You're going to... Times. You're going to love this. I promise. You are going to love the crap out of this. Jeffries and Kushner meet privately as midterm attacks fly. President Trump's son-in-law and the man in line to be Speaker of the Democratic-led House discussed how Democrats and the administration could work together. Great. Representative Hakeem Jeffries, Democrat of New York, and the minority leader met privately in recent weeks with Jared Kushner, President Trump's son-in-law and top outside advisor, and discussed potential areas of common ground, according to 5 people with knowledge of the meeting. The rare engagement was held in a private space in New York City, offered up by a mutual friend of the two men, according to 2 people with knowledge of the meeting and a third who was briefed on it. They and others were granted anonymity to discuss a meeting about which they were not authorized to speak publicly. Through aides, neither man would comment on the session, which was described by one person with knowledge of it as a broad conversation on a range of topics. Still, its timing underscores that those around Mr. Trump were well aware of the likelihood of a Democratic-led House and trying to foster as much of a working relationship as possible before any change. Mr. Jeffries is in line to be the Speaker, were Democrats to win the majority. Democrats and the president have been savaging each other on the campaign trail with increasing fury as the midterm elections approach and as Republicans are fighting to retain their thin House and Senate majorities. Mr. Trump has called Mr. Jeffries a thug and at a May campaign event referred to him as a low IQ person who has inspired him to deride Democrats as the Democrats. Mr. Jeffries routinely suggests that Mr. Trump is not only extreme but corrupt, vowing that Democrats would hold the crooks accountable if they won control. The private get-together was described by one of the people as a catch-up for Mr. Kushner and Mr. Jeffries. The 2 men have stayed in touch since they worked together on a criminal justice bill midway through Mr. Trump's first term. During the recent meeting, the pair discussed housing, immigration, and the high cost of living as potential areas of common ground. Mr. Kushner suggested that Mr. Jeffries should meet with the White House Chief of Staff, Susie Wiles. 2 people with knowledge of the meeting said. Bruh, my 7-year-old heard me learn about this in real time. I had to reluctantly explain to him as a guy on Trump's team met with someone on another team, and he was like, sounds like they are both on Trump's team. Wow, you got a smart 7-year-old. Nice. Yes, they are on the same team, on the team of capitalism. Did you know there is a B in dumb, though? Amandria, yeah, he keeps saying that, eh? What the fuck is that about? The likelihood of any compromises between the White House and Democrats on those issues seem remote. Mr. Trump this year refused to sign a bipartisan housing bill in part because he said it was Warren-centric, referring to Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts, its top Democratic champion. And he has repeatedly expressed openness to a deal with Democrats on immigration, only to back away from such an agreement. He successfully lobbied Republicans to abandon a bipartisan border security bill in 2024. What is the difference between the Democrats and fucking Republicans right now? Honestly, there isn't a difference. These Democrats are all just... they're all just cogs in the system. That's the problem. All in all, you're just another brick in the wall.
There have been clashes intensifying in the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. Are you concerned about a new front opening?
Absolutely. I mean, one of the ways that we were able to sort of ease the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz was to have Saudi pump oil to its terminal on the Red Sea and then move through the Strait of Bab el-Mandeb and get it to Asia.
Holy shit. After a thunderstorm last night, look at this. This is Justin J. Pearson. After a thunderstorm last night, 100,000 households in Memphis are without power, possibly until Thursday. It's 90 degrees outside. Another majority black working class city left in the dark. Oh my goodness. Guess what, folks? This is, I guess we can start calling America a third world country now. Warms the heart, honestly. Okay. 102 UK French ex-ambassadors accuse Israel of ethnic cleansing in open letter.
Former British and French diplomats are urging action over what they say is Israel's erasure of Palestine. More than 100 of those diplomats have penned a letter to the French president and the British prime minister calling for a ban on trade in arms sales to press Israel to accept a Palestinian state.
Direct Luminosity, thank you for the follow and great name, Direct Luminosity. Illuminate me. Are you Illuminati? Direct Luminosity, Illuminati. Is that like another way to say Illuminati? Welcome. Welcome, secret society person. How are you?
An unprecedented joint letter directly accuses Israel of ethnic cleansing and warns that the world no longer sees it as a genuine democracy. We can now bring in Sir Vincent Feen, British former Consul General, Jerusalem, and current trustee of the Britain-Palestine Project, which advocates equal rights for Palestinians and Israelis. Welcome, Sir Vincent, to the program. Thank you for taking the time to speak with us. Now, you're one of the signatories on the letter. What do you hope that this will achieve?
Thank you, Catherine. Well, we are stronger together, Britain and France, near neighbours, permanent members of the UN Security Council, European neighbours. So what do we want to happen? The 102 former ambassadors from France and the UK who signed the letter want action, further action by our two governments, working together and with a kind of convening power with the La Francophonie, the Commonwealth, other European states, to help persuade Israel to change course. The reason being that what the Netanyahu government has been doing for several years now is making Gaza unlivable. And as you said, there is ethnic cleansing in the West Bank. And they are not listening to their friends. The Israeli government is not listening to its friends. So the joint actions that we have in mind involve disrupting the settlement project, which is unlawful, illegal. Indeed, the entire occupation has been judged to be unlawful by the International Court of Justice. And there's one urgent thing, Catherine, which is that there is a project called E1, one of the many settlement projects, but is big and bad. And Israel launched tenders for this project just 2 days ago with the idea of splitting East Jerusalem off from the rest of the West Bank, and also West Bank being split north-south. So what we would like to see happen is that any bidder for those tenders, be they Israeli or foreign, should be penalized and not be able to work in our countries.
Now, Sir Vincent, we were speaking earlier to our Jerusalem correspondent about this letter. Now, I want to ask you, why send it now? Because she had remarked that maybe something like this should have come sooner.
There have been earlier attempts, but there is real urgency now, Catherine, because of the ethnic cleansing going on in the West Bank, actually besieging some of the villages like Kosra and Taibeh, a Christian town, and the fact that in spite of the ceasefire, which was announced last October, almost a year ago, there is still insufficient food aid, medicines, temporary accommodation getting into Gaza. So Gaza is literally unlivable but almost 2 million Gazans are trying to survive there.
Palestinians in Gaza. We don't say Gazans. Palestinians in Gaza.
And that needs to change. So in order to deliver that change, I think, and we think, that additional pressure is needed on the government of Israel, which, as you know, is facing elections on the 27th of October. And I believe that this government is trying to go for broke, making sure that the state that Britain, Canada, France, Australia recognized last September, less than a year ago, will never come into being. Our wish is that the self-determination of the people of Israel should be matched by self-determination for the people of Palestine.
Sir Vincent, you bring up those upcoming Israeli elections, as you mentioned, that's happening in October. Do you believe that the next government will continue the current government's policies regarding the Palestinians in West Bank?
Yes.
Part of this attempt to exert pressure by the UK, France, Spain, and others is to show the electorate in Israel that there is another way, that there is a way of peace and justice, because at the moment there is no law in the West Bank and no law in Gaza, but a way forward that unites Gaza and the West Bank peacefully and which ensures that Israelis can live in peace side by side with their Palestinian neighbors. That vision has been lost in recent years. There have not been negotiations, frankly, since 2014. But when my colleague Frédéric Designeau and I were in Jerusalem, he's one of the co-signatories on the French side. But in order to persuade the electorate that there is a better way, there also have to be consequences for the lawless behavior of this Israeli government, which is supporting ethnic cleansing and is withholding aid into Gaza. And the ceasefire that we saw last October is very much one way. They continue to fire into Gaza in a one-way fashion. So what we want to see is that the Israeli electorate in October are shown that there is a better way, a way of obeying the law, and a way that enables those two peoples to live side by side, which is the wish of the international community, has been for decades, but the current Israeli government is determined to bury the two-state outcome, which is the policy of the wider world.
Remember, folks, the two-state solution is nothing but a colonizer's wish. The two-state solution does two things. It keeps hope alive for somehow these two populations to live together. And two, it does so by saying that Israel will dominate the Palestinian people. The two-state solution isn't a real solution. It is European colonization. There's no real two states here. What they're saying is an Israeli state that basically has control from the river to the sea, and a subjugated population that on paper seems like two states, but in reality is just one big apartheid state. It's no good. And people like this guy, they seem like they're acting in good faith, but they're really perpetuating a racist governmental structure. It's fucking insane. And they keep doing it. And they'll keep doing it, behaving like they mean well, but none of these fucking people do. They're all wanting a subjugated Palestinian state, not a real Palestinian state with self-determination. This is white saviorism at its best. It's fucking stupid, and don't believe any of these fucking people. Okay, let's look at this interview now. China plans for Taiwan. This is an interview that was released on Al Jazeera. Very, very interesting. I've only listened to the first little bit of it because it was only released 4 hours ago. I'm keen as to go through this with you guys in the war segment. So let's get into it. I think this whole China-Taiwan thing is about to get a little spicy. We'll see. We'll see.
How can China allow a part of China still being separated from China? So we would never tolerate Taiwan's independence. Taiwan will be back. The only question is when and how. It's not a question of if.
That, I must say, sounds like textbook old order big bully behavior of the kind that you often criticize the West for. I do want to understand how would Chinese leadership differ from the West in tackling global challenges like Gaza. China had the chance to take the moral leadership here. But what has China done instead? You're also the world's biggest exporter to Israel, the third biggest importer of Israeli goods.
I think China's attitude towards the Israelis' massive killing is clear cut. Nobody would ever doubt about China's strong condemnation over what Israel has done. And in terms of trading, that should be somewhat separated from politics. So
What? Trading should be somewhat separate from politics? Oh, bro. Where are the tankies? Bring the tankies. Bring the tankies, everybody.
I think China is doing the right thing.
The international order is breaking down at a dramatic pace. Russia's invasion of Ukraine, Israel's genocide of Palestinians, and the joint US-Israel war on Iran each has eroded the credibility of the rules-based order. For decades, the United States and key allies sat at the center of this global system built on Western political, military, and economic power. Supporters say it underpinned an era of unprecedented prosperity and relative stability. Critics argue that it placed power above principle. That debate is no longer academic. In this series, I speak to world leaders and leading strategic thinkers about what comes next, the ideas that could shape tomorrow's international system. No country is more central to that conversation than China. President Xi Jinping says China rejects hegemony and offers a more multipolar world built on sovereignty and non-interference. But does its conduct match those principles? Beijing has refused to condemn Russia's invasion of Ukraine. It maintains deep commercial ties with Israel as Gaza lies in ruins and the West Bank burns. And Taiwan contends with the permanent threat of military force. My guest is retired Senior Colonel Zhou Bo. He's one of China's foremost strategic voices and a former senior officer in the People's Liberation Army. I ask him, is China offering a genuinely different world order or simply a different distribution of power? Senior Colonel Zhou Bo, thank you very much indeed for joining us. The international order is under enormous strain. President Xi says that China is the keeper of the international order, that it upholds the authority of the United Nations. This sounds great in theory, but in practice, what has China done that entitles it to make that claim, you think?
Well, people have a lot of misunderstanding about international order because most people in the West would associate it with so-called liberal international order.
Yeah.
I never buy that. I never believe there is anything called a liberal international order. I would say the international order is like what it was since time immemorial.
Okay, so just to be clear, my argument is not that the international order is only the liberal order, but that there is this current crisis or churn going on across the world. And the question was really on China, that when President Xi says that you are the keeper of the order, that you respect the United Nations Charter, is that just theory or is that in practice? What has China done? What are China's actions that allow it to make that claim?
Well, China likes the United Nations because, anyway, United Nations is an intergovernmental organization, the largest one. Therefore, it would have more authority. By supporting the United Nations, which you can take almost as a kind of international order, China would say that it is a guardian of the international order. Okay. That means we're not a revisionist. We are the guardian of the existing international order. But what it is the UN-centered international order.
And you believe that if you look at it, particularly the turmoil around the world today, but do you see yourself as a force for peace and for stability compared to, let's say, the countries of the West? Is that how you position yourself?
China's military actually has been involved in a lot of, military operation around the world, but they are exclusively in humanitarian area. So be it peacekeeping, counterpiracy, or disaster relief, right? And that is a unique Chinese way of making contribution toward the world without, killing anyone.
Okay. Some of your own neighbors might disagree with the idea of China as a peacekeeping force, as a non-hegemonic force, but I want to come to the neighborhood later. If I can test some of those contentions you made by looking at China's position when it comes to the current global conflicts. China is quite right to criticize the US Western liberal order as one that starts wars. China was very critical of the US Israel invasion in Iran. You said it's a violation of the international law. But those aren't the only countries starting wars. It's also countries outside the Western liberal axis, like Russia, unilaterally invades Ukraine, denounced by the United Nations. China doesn't condemn it. What happened to respecting the UN Charter?
No, you have misunderstood China, because China actually has criticized Russia, but in a subtle Chinese way, because we immediately point out that sovereignty should be respected. In so saying, we are actually pointing out that this kind of sovereignty of another country is not respected.
But in the UN vote, though, China abstained. 141 nations all over the world, including countries of the global south, voted to condemn the Russian invasion. You were very clear about condemning the invasion of Iran, but in the case of Russia, you didn't.
Well, you see, there are actually a lot of your resolutions regarding Russia's invasion of Ukraine. On some, yes, China abstained, but on some, China vetoed yes. So it depends on which kind of resolution you're referring to. But given China's good relationship with Russia, I think this kind of, abstaining itself actually speaks about for itself.
In some ways, you're admitting actually what many critics say, that just weeks before the Russian invasion, President Xi said that there are no limits to China's friendship with Russia. So you are taking positions not based on principles, but on ideology, on countries that are part of your axis.
Well, on this unlimited friendship, it's very easy for me to explain. Actually, in the same...
Yes. This is a dumb question. These are dumb questions. Like, that question was dumb, because you can't impose a standard on China in this way, because it tries to paint China and say the West, for example, as equal players. China has been oppressed just like every other global South nation by the West, right? Like it has been torn apart, ripped to shreds. 20 million Chinese people killed by the Japanese people in World War II. And then after that, Japan was the one that was invited into the G7, not China. So the asymmetry of the world is very clear. So asking China to make, I guess, or asking any country in the global South to be making compromises when the West does not want to compromise its position is kind of crazy in itself. But the question is somewhat true as well, in that the consistency of China's international law just isn't there. It's not there because it can't be there, because China, just like the West, is playing outside the international system. It's playing outside international law, just like the West is.
Agreement between China and Russia. Soon after this was mentioned,
Yes.
then immediately it was pointed out that this relationship is not directed against any third parties. Why won't people pay attention to this?
But it's not just diplomatic support, by the way. You've been criticized, as you know, for providing military technology to Russia. China says you only supply dual-use material. The G7, though, issued a statement saying China is a decisive enabler of Russia's war.
What G7 means is that all these kind of dual-use items could actually provide a kind of lifeline to Russia. That is what it means. China has been very strict, in not providing any military equipment or arms to Russia, because if China has done that, it won't go uncovered. It will soon be discovered. When something is dual-use in nature, what is the first nature? The first nature is it is for civilian use, because just like oil and gas, if you put it in the tank of a military truck, it is a military product, but normally nobody would consider gas and oil kind of a military product.
But, when they say decisive enabler of Russia's war, it seems beyond just double use. The Ukrainian foreign intelligence chief, by the way, was more specific. He said China supplies gunpowder and other components specifically to 20 Russian defense manufacturing industries that they've identified.
Well, I cannot verify that, but even if it is gunpowder, it's not arms, right? Or ammunition, right? So that is there is a critical difference. First of all, I really don't know how true that kind of allegation is, but even that is true, still there is a difference. If you look at the global south countries, very few countries would criticize China as a hypocritical, right? And in the West, the problem is because of their wish that Ukraine can win, therefore they would put pressure on China. In fact, it is the West that is widely criticized for its double standard, right? Yeah. If we just see the war in Ukraine and the war in Gaza, well, this is just like a black and white kind of hypocrisy.
I'm glad you mentioned Gaza because the Gaza genocide is clearly a failure of the Western liberal order. China had the chance to take the moral leadership here. But what has China done instead? You've condemned Israel's actions, but you're also the world's biggest exporter to Israel, the third biggest importer of Israeli goods. That doesn't sound like moral leadership. That sounds like business as usual.
Well, I think you are just mixing politics with the economy, right?
What? Okay, man. Okay, this is fucking stupid. How do you not mix politics and economy? That line right there is complete hogwash. Hogwash.
I think China's attitude towards the Israelis' massive killing is clear-cut. Yeah, nobody would ever doubt about China's strong condemnation over what Israel has done. But China is different in the Middle East because it is the only country that actually has befriended almost everyone before this war. So China's position in the Middle East is considered quite impartial and neutral. And that actually raised people's hope as to what China can actually do to solve this problem, or even, as some people say, could fill in the so-called vacuum. China would not fill the vacuum.
But the fact that you're trading with a country that's committing ethnic cleansing, committing genocide, isn't that a moral failure?
Well, I don't believe any international would prohibit us from having kind of a normal trade relationship, because this kind of transaction has been done even before the war, right?
I'm saying this because circumstances call for different measures, and clearly the condemnation, China, other countries, is not working. It's creating no pressure on Israel, and hence the possibility of sanctions. Very much is on the table. Why would China not consider sanctions?
Well, you see, the sanctions do not always work. And for this question to be asked, and I believe the right people for you to ask is the United States first, yeah? So, because they are the countries that right behind Israel, I always argue, Israel is America's Achilles heel.
Absolutely, and that's why I said at the outset, this is very much a failure of that axis. But as I said, this was a chance for China to take the leadership. If you take a country like Spain, Senior Colonel, they are very much part of the Western liberal axis. They actually broke from that. They've taken a very...
Bro, please don't call support of a country, doing trade with a country committing genocide as pragmatic. Please don't do that. That just makes you look bad. This is not pragmatism. This is opportunism. And it's, frankly, fucking terrible. Let's be real.
Strong stand against Israel. They've called for economic sanctions.
I know. Just don't call it pragmatic, though. This is not pragmatic. Like, would you say the same about a country that was trading with Nazi Germany? Would you call them pragmatic?
Sanctions, they've put an arms embargo. That, in some ways, represents the New World Order.
Well, you see, sanction for China is not the whole thing, because China has been sanctioned time again in the past. So therefore, we do not really buy that. I think China's role in the future is a kind of three role. One is a facilitator, another is a mediator, the third is security guarantor, along with some other countries. So people have a high expectation for China, And I believe this is what China's role will be in the future.
So is there any scenario in which Beijing would use its economic clout to stop mass atrocities?
Well, I don't believe, first of all, it has such a strong association with China. China's attitude on the Middle East issue is clear-cut, right? And in terms of trading, that should be somewhat separated from politics. So I think China is doing the right thing. And I think the Arab countries have no doubts about China.
And so perhaps there is some scope there for China.
I'm Irish. We aren't anti the genocide and the colonizer. We are anti the genocide. Yeah, but your government is trading with Israel too, right? Like, I understand what you're saying. It's just, I think we gotta wash our accountabilities away. We're all complicit. We're all complicit to some degree. Our governments have made us that way, have made the situation that way. I think to look for a solution isn't to, downplay the complicity. Like this guy's saying politics and trade aren't supposed to be linked together. That's so bullshit, right? Like politics and trade are the same fucking thing. Everything is political, folks. Never, ever let anybody tell you you can't do politics in sport or in trade. Everything is political. Everything is a political statement, whether you like it or not. People who tell you to keep politics out of this, people who tell you to keep politics out of that, no politiquia. They're all just trying to shut down speech. It's keeping a particular structure of oppression and keeping the status quo going. Always question. Always use politics. There is always space for politics everywhere. It doesn't matter where. Even with your kids, having political conversations of like, hey, why are you only watching? Why are there only fucking white creators you're watching? Why don't you try and find some people of color? Why is it that on YouTube, all your liked ones are there no people of color? And if the answer is no, there aren't many content creators, you help them find. Everything's political. Trust me. Everything. If you're not making it political, the thing you're taking part in is making it political. Everything is political.
China to do more. But let me switch to the region now. President Xi says that China is opposed to hegemony and power politics. You've often said that the West is the sole sort of space that fears China. The reality is this. Under President Xi's watch, China has turbocharged its military might. All your neighbors are reporting heightened Chinese territorial aggression, hegemonic behavior. This is in the West. This is India. These are nations of the South China Sea.
No, not at all. You see, on China's land border, we only have territorial issue with two countries, that is India and Bhutan, which is very much under control of India. You see, China actually, since 1970...
If you don't do politics, politics will do you. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Now has resolved the border issue with 12 countries. So you can hardly say that China is not sincere in resolving this kind of border issue. With India, it's more complicated because even we cannot agree on the length of the border. It's such a big issue. In the South China Sea, people, yes, China does have a problem with some countries, but people often forget one thing. These claimants also have
It's looking bad now, people. Turkey is moving in on Syria. What do you mean Turkey is moving in on Syria now? The whole Syrian liberation movement was powered by Turkey. HTS was backed by Turkey. It's not that Turkey is now getting into Syria. The reason why Syria is where it is now is because of Turkey's backing of HTS, the liberation movement.
A question of demarcation among themselves. So it's not a question of China versus other claimants. It's also an issue very much among these other claimants of Southeast Asian countries.
So I'm not saying other parties are blameless, Senior Colonel, but China also...
Turkey is trying to build the Ottoman Empire again.
Is been their aggressor, has been found to be in the wrong. A tribunal under the UN Law of the Sea ruled in 2016 that China's maritime claims vis-a-vis the Philippines violated international law. Beijing simply rejected the ruling. What happened to respecting global order?
No, because the case actually happened in 2013, right? And the ruling came in 2016. But actually, China, back in 2006.
Wasn't the head of Syria the deputy head of ISIS? I think he was like the leader of Al Qaeda or something. No, I don't know if he had association with ISIS, but they're all the fucking same. They, like, this Al Jolani dude is just another, scapegoat for somebody else. He whatever good that might happen to Syria will be taken away very soon, because a peaceful Syria is not going to be good for a peaceful Syria is not going to be good for America's interest in the region. You should do some research on that.
Has made it clear that we would not accept any ruling under Article 298. So that means China already said that without knowing Philippines one day will just sue China, because we believe it's about sovereignty, and the UN Convention on Law of the Sea would not deal any issues on the sovereignty.
But again, as I said, isn't that cherry picking which UN convention? Because you say that you respect the UN Charter. A UN convention that doesn't suit you, you reject it.
No, well,
surely that seems like double standards.
UN Charter is law itself, but there are many other laws. UN Convention Law of the Sea is not about sovereignty, and this is clearly written in the preamble. Read it.
Okay, but on India, it's not just a complex border question. In 2020, an estimated 20 Indian soldiers were killed in a violent brawl with the Chinese army. I believe 4 Chinese troops were killed as well. Yes. Time magazine says the clash was triggered by China's more aggressive posture in the region since President Xi came to power. That doesn't sound like you've resolved border issues or that you're a peaceful neighbor.
Well, I think it depends on how you look at this issue. Before that, actually over 4 decades, the border was by and large peaceful, and even Prime Minister Modi putting that out. This actually line of actual control was never demarcated. So sometimes, Chinese troops and Indian troops would end up being in the territory that was considered by the other side to be their territory, and that was most unfortunate. But look at the history since 1979. That was the only incident that China had actually from 1979. So nobody would disagree that China's rise has been most peaceful compared to any other powers in the history.
Okay, interesting. Some would say that this almost could have become a much greater clash. Mercifully, it didn't. But let's come to Taiwan, Senior Colonel, and tell me if here China's actions do not translate into direct hegemonic behavior. It's a tiny island of 23 million, the majority of whom in poll after poll say they do not want to live under Beijing's rule. China's response has been to fire rockets, simulate air and naval strikes, basically threaten invasion.
Well, I think you are just putting Taiwan as an independent country, while more than 180 countries, including India, and the United States, all these countries consider Taiwan to be part of China. So we are still having patience. We still look for a peaceful reunification, but they have to behave. So in certain circumstances, actually 3 kind of circumstances, according to China's anti-secession law, we might resort.
I'm getting the fuck out of Florida. Why? What happened?
To use of force, but I hope that would be the last resort.
But when you say they have to be,
I find it funny that only one of them gets subtitles. Hey, Magic Thighs, welcome.
Behave. Do explain to our viewers what
this is. The subtlety of it. Like, this brown guy would get subtitles if he was talking to a white guy. Like, it's so stupid.
What that means, if a majority of the population do not want to be part of China, identify as Taiwanese, surely there has to be some respect for the will of the people.
Well, I mean, they have to behave because the ruling party is DPP, who actually champion a kind of Taiwan independence, and it's under their leadership. We basically have any exchanges across the strait. But this DPP led, authority by Lai Ching-te even refused to consider Taiwan to be part of China. That is a big problem.
Right. You're talking about the current president of Taiwan, Lai Ching-te, but I was asking more about the people, because quite outside of whoever's in
My
charge,
clothes brush, hello.
If a growing number of people, and I'm quoting a Pew poll.
150 stream streak, you absolute animal.
from 2024, which said 80% of Taiwan's young consider themselves Taiwanese, not Chinese. 2/3 consider China as a major threat to their sovereignty. Again,
well,
this is the public view.
No, this
surely that's something that China should respect.
No, this is not the whole of public view, because you will have different polls. Actually, the latest poll shows that actually young people are really.
This guy's an ex-general, Chinese military guy, ex-Chinese military guy. What is the position of the Chinese guy? Is he a diplomat? He's very pro CCP. This guy, a retired senior colonel, Zhou Bo, retired senior colonel of the People's Liberation Army.
Happy to see what was happening in mainland China, and more people actually are coming to work in mainland China.
So I'd be very interested to see polls which actually show a reverse, because these polls show very big numbers. 80%, 60%, 70% would prefer to remain Taiwanese and not have Chinese control. But again, just coming back to the idea of what that would mean, Senior Colonel, because the fear is surely that if there is going to be greater Chinese control, then you will have repression, you will have the stripping away of a freer society. They're looking at what happened in Hong Kong with the protests and the way that China cracked down, and I'm not sure if they want to go there.
Well, you are just looking at this issue from the eyes of some Taiwanese, but as a mainlander, I can provide another angle. Just think of this. Yeah, if more than 180 countries believe Taiwan is part of China, how can China allow a part of China still being separated from China? It's just as simple as that. So we would never tolerate Taiwan's independence. Taiwan will be back. The only question is when and how. It's not a question of if.
Wow.
That, I must say, sounds, Senior Colonel, like textbook old order big bully behavior, of the kind that you've often criticized the West for.
No, because we're still talking about peaceful reunification. People always talk about the stick part of our policy, but but people have forgotten mainland China has actually offered a lot of carrots. For example, those children from the Taiwanese families could go to kindergartens, and the card we issue to them is very much like our own, ID card, and we are giving them more and more preferential treatments. It is the Taiwanese society who refuse these kind of offers, because they are afraid that the more the two sides become integrated, the more Taiwanese people would be, attracted by the mainland, which is the fact. Because, China now is the center of gravity almost. Of course, the Taiwanese people would not be the exception.
So there could be a difference between seeking economic opportunities here to actually being governed by China. But let me move on, Colonel. China treats non-interference as a cornerstone of your foreign policy. It's the holy grail. We won't tell you what to do, you don't tell us what to do. But there's another way to read it. Is non-interference a way of shutting down any questions on how China treats its own citizens? They have no voting rights, no free press, no meaningful right to dissent.
Well, non-interference is a part of, Chinese foreign policy, and this is what you're talking about is kind of.
Hey, missionary starfish, welcome. Kia ora. Welcome. Kia ora is hello in Te Reo Maori. We use a few Te Reo Maori words here, but I will start to translate them as I use them. But kia ora, welcome.
Domestic situation. Well, I just give you a quote. According to a poll, okay, you like a poll, right? According to a poll by Harvard University, 90% of Chinese people actually are happy with China's the status quo, and we believe we're much better than the rest of the world. It's a poll from Harvard University. Read it.
I'm not disputing that China has made rapid strides in terms of economic success, but again, the fact is that internally, there is no way for people to actually signal whether they're happy or not, because there are no pipelines of feedback, there's no pipelines of dissent, there's no public opinion that's allowed.
No,
which could be critical of the regime. President Xi is essentially elected by about 3,000 of his party colleagues in a country of over 1 billion.
Liz's Lounge, I agree.
A majority of Chinese have no say in determining who elects them.
Well, you do not understand China's, election.
Yeah, just sit down, man. You don't understand China's election
system because we just have a different election levels at different constituencies, and these people are represented at each constituency, and those people at the higher constituency would to vote for this kind of leadership.
But it's still a one-party system. There's no alternative.
Well, no, you're wrong. In China, it's not one party. We have many other parties, but the dominant party is the Chinese Communist Party.
I mean, the other parties are essentially supervised by the Communist China Party. But when you talk about people being happy, Senior Colonel, are the Uyghurs happy? The UN Human Rights Office report of August 22 says that China's abuses in the Xinjiang region may constitute crimes against humanity.
No, I don't think so. Because if you look at the world, ethnic problem is always most difficult to resolve. Yeah, and if you look at the people in Xinjiang, actually the life is becoming longer. Yeah, and if you,
not according to the United Nations.
Well, the life is certainly much longer because people's living standards are much higher. This doesn't need any statistics. This is just a common sense. Yeah, if you just Google easily whether the people in Xinjiang's life are getting longer, the answer is definitely yes. How can you just convince me that their life is just becoming shorter because of politics in China? This is impossible.
This is not me saying it. Human Rights Watch says hundreds and thousands of Uyghurs remain imprisoned as part of the government's crimes against humanity in the region.
No, we do not. We do not describe it as such. We had a time when some of these people would have to go through a kind of re-educating center where we actually teach them all kinds of techniques. So it's not about what you have described as a prison. No, we do not have.
Oh, I see. Just re-education camps. All right.
So do not have so many prisons.
Let me ask you in conclusion.
He didn't answer the question. Okay, guys. All right. Let me just be clear. Let me just be clear. This is why I will never ever get on the side. Yeah, bro just said re-education camp. Yeah, exactly. He's like, oh, it was just some kind of re-education to give education. He literally was like, listen to this dude.
Politics in China, this is impossible.
This is not me saying it. Human Rights Watch says hundreds and thousands of Uyghurs remain imprisoned as part of the government's crimes against humanity in the region.
No, we do not. We do not describe it as such. We had a time when some of these people would have to go through a kind of re-educating center where we actually teach them all kinds of techniques. So
a re-educating center where we teach them all kind of techniques.
It's not about what you have described as a prison. No, we do not have so many prisons.
Let me ask you in conclusion, because you've been very.
Oh my gosh. Very calmly saying re-education camp. Yeah. It's okay. He said it calmly. All right. So it must be all right. He said it calmly. So it must be okay. Guys, if we are to build a more equitable world for all, okay, we cannot ever think governments are infallible. Okay? You cannot look at China and say, okay, China is this incredible actor in the world. You can never, ever, I don't know how people can think that. Governments always fail their people, no matter which government it is. Each do it in different levels, on different scales, but they do it. But they do it in some way. And I just want us as a group here, as a community, to be able to critique governments and not be sycophantic about supporting. Right? Because I hope that we end up in a world where we don't have to have an imperialist power. You know, where we don't yearn for another imperialist power. But after the end of Western hegemony, after the end of American imperialism, that we go into a world that's truly equitable for all, with international systems that actually hold people to account, for, no matter what their background is. And we have to want that world for it to come true. If we keep going, if we keep accepting chains because they're not from the people you hate, they're still chains. Liberation is liberation. If you're for liberation, we need to understand that we cannot have hegemonic rule in the world. And we've got to, as citizens of the world, fight against it. It just always blows me away when people are like, yeah, this government, oh, Kim Jong-un, you know, he looks so cool. Or the Europeans are so morally correct, or fuck, man. Or the West is educating the world and giving whatever, right? Like, it's all bullshit, sycophantic behavior. And you should treat all of these scenarios, you should treat all of these scenarios as skeptical, and you should be open to criticizing all of them. Because let me tell you one thing. One thing he brought up in the Human Rights Watch, right? He brought up Human Rights Watch. I know a lot of people who will use Human Rights Watch when it comes to Gaza. Okay? When it comes to Gaza, people will use Human Rights Watch as a source of information that they trust. But when it comes to China, people will say, oh, the same old playbook. Just note that if you undermine Human Rights Watch in one place, you're undermining Human Rights Watch everywhere. So you gotta, the consistency part of this is very important. Like, do you take Human Rights Watch only when it's Gaza, or do you take Human Rights Watch when it's other places too? Right? So there is this lack of consistency in our world. For all the criticism of re-education camps, even if it's just the term, how do people suggest dealing with indoctrination? Honest question. By growing and learning and not accepting status quo, right? Like, not accepting status quo, not accepting what anybody says about a country. But how do you make other people do that? Education. Like, I can guarantee you, man, over the last 3 years, over re-education, yeah. Not forced education. Venice. And not in camps. So a re-education system of some sort then, yeah. That's literally the same thing? No, man, it's not. It's not state-based education. Like, re-education camps are state-based. I'm talking about individuals educating their communities, not like a state-based propaganda machine that's re-educating people based on the same education, same content. I'm talking about like, is this a re-education camp? Like, am I running a re-education camp here? Is this a re-education camp? Are we in a re-education camp? Is the noisy immigrant running a re-education camp? Well, let's be real, okay? Re-education camp, a state-based, some of us are camp. The schooling system is a great call. Yeah, the schooling system is indoctrination for sure. And it has been for a long time. Wait, we're free to leave. Shiny. the schooling system is indoctrination. One of the main types of indoctrination the schooling system does, it whitewashes history. And that is one type of indoctrination in the West that needs to stop happening. Schools have become re-education camps to maintain a white supremacist view of the world. Absolutely, and they've always been that way. Okay, so how do you deal with MAGA? Using that example, because I just happen to live in a rural area in one of the red states, if not the reddest one in the US. Let me tell you what the next revolution is, folks. Let me tell you what the next revolution is. Okay? Do you want to hear about what my next revolution is? What I think the next revolution is? White on white education. White on white education. White people educating other white people about white supremacy and white privilege. I think that will change the world. I think that will fundamentally change the world. So you as a white person within your household or your community or in white spaces, educating other white people, your friends or your family or whoever, about white supremacy and white privilege. I think fundamentally that is where the next revolution is going to come from. But you know what answers I get sometimes? Like what the next revolution is? Irish people educating other Irish people about being Irish sounds cool. No, Irish people also understanding that white supremacy and white privilege also belongs to them. And it depends on the environment. Irish people are not immune from having white privilege. And Irish people are not immune from being white supremacists. So whiteness is very important to educate. Literally what I'm trying to do by being in here, thanks for the space, genuinely. Oh, thank you, Laser Lady. I actually thought it'd be cool to make a re-education channel that band chatters have to go to and watch for a certain number of hours to get unbanned. Oh, shit. So they have to take your re-education course to get unbanned? Oh, my gosh. A literal re-education camp. I love it. The thing that you'll hear from a lot of like white leftists in particular is, okay, what's your solution? And I've heard people going like, oh, we should build a commune in the forest. Or, you know, we should do some of the most impractical shit the world has ever seen. And then when I bring up white on white education, they just get angry. It's like, how the heck am I going to do that? Rah, rah, rah. Bro, you want to build a commune in the forest. Education should be easier than that, right? Like a literal fucking commune in the forest. Or white people will become Hare Krishnas or something. But why aren't white people in their spaces? Why? Educating other white people about white supremacy and white privilege. I would love to see that. And I think like I think it's that simple. Brother, work is hard. Trust me. Like I speak to my dad about this stuff as well. Like I mean, brown people have to do the work within their communities too, and black people have to do the work within their communities too, because we're losing people, right? Like we're losing people into spaces, into systems where upholding white supremacy is the deal. Like capitalism upholds white supremacy ultimately, and we lose people too. Like brown, black people lose people to that indoctrination. But we constantly are doing the work, right? We're constantly doing it in the background because we know fundamentally that if we don't do that sort of education, it's people will forget our culture. I feel like you are rage baiting because as a brown person, you know that India has huge influence over the world. What do you mean? What do you mean India has huge influence over the world? Are you a brown person, are you? Let me show you something. This is the World Economic Outlook growth projections by the IMF. You're Middle Eastern? Okay, sit down and maybe I'll help you. I'll help you look at how the world works. Okay, so this is a simple way for me to show you how the world is actually set up. This is the IMF's This is the IMF's World Economic Outlook growth projections, 2024, 2025, 2026. Okay? And you'll see the IMF groups countries. You'll see that Ireland groups countries into two groups. Now, it's other advanced economies. Ireland is in other advanced economies. Advanced economies are Western nations and their allies. And emerging markets and developing countries are the global south. Okay? So we apparently ended European colonization a few years ago, or a few decades ago. And yet, one of the major financial institutions in the world still views the world this way. This apartheid world that we live in. Okay? So if I took these countries and I put it on a map and I had these advanced economies in blue and emerging economies in, say, orange, what you would find is that this map would look very similar to colonial maps in the 1800s. It would look no different to a colonial map, except for one or two areas like Japan, South Korea, and Taiwan, and these sorts of places would be part of the mix now, and Singapore probably. But those are just outposts of Western hegemony, right? They are controlled, sequestered. The rest of the world is on a tier 2. We are, the global south is on a second, and there's even a third and a fourth tier. So the world is built this way. The IMF was formed or formally launched in 1945. 1945 was when World War II ended. But it's not just Europeans that are investing or creating, or I don't know what, in Switzerland, for example. What? What are you talking about, man? What are you talking about? Like, do you understand what this is? You don't know? Okay. Well, what I'm telling you is for 600 years, the world, the way it is today, has been formed over 600 years of European colonization. Okay? And that is wealth flowing from the global south to the west. Mainly, for a huge portion of that time, it's been to London, centralized in London and in places like Amsterdam. Okay? And that wealth is continuing to be centralized through a system called capitalism. Capitalism, the word itself, was coined in the mid-1800s by a French socialist who was describing what Europe was doing at the time, which is centralizing its capital and investing its capital in various different colonies to extract more money, more wealth out of the global south. So basically, when the guy invented the word capitalism, he was describing what European colonization was doing. So capitalism is European colonization rebranded. And that is the capitalist system we have today. And capitalism is ultimately the story of the exploitation of labor, of the global South's labor in particular, from the slave trade to indentured labor to prison systems to black codes to globalization. It's a story of exploitation of black and brown labor. It continues today. It is still going today. It is still going today. European colonization didn't end. What Europe realized after World War II is that it couldn't continue to keep boots on the ground in its colonies. So what did Europe and America do? It built a financial system, a global order, through international institutions like the UN, the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, and other newer organizations like the World Trade Organization, in order to maintain a model of the world. Every global South country has to fit into that model, right? Or it can't get the perks of being part of this hegemony. It can't get the perks. I mean, look at Cuba, man. Cuba did not want to be part of this. Cuba did not want to be part of this, and they've been sanctioned into oblivion. Iran has, since the 1970s, said it didn't want to be part of this, sanctioned into fucking oblivion. So any country that stands against this, the leaders are either assassinated or they are sanctioned into the ground until they yield and they're bought into the system. India is no different. India is not at the table here. India is not at the table at all in any way. India is still considered an emerging market by this hegemony. And if India doesn't play its cards right, it will be sanctioned in just the same way. So we live in a global apartheid system where the West are the haves, and the global South are the have-nots. So, and that system is being constantly reinforced through every single international international organization that's there, international institution, global institution that's there in the world today. Every single one. Every UN organization, every UN subsidiary, the ICC, ICJ. ICC isn't a UN subsidiary, but from an international law perspective, from education, from all areas of society, the West imposes its model on the global South. So to say India is as influential as any country in the West, yeah, it's becoming more influential for sure. But it is still very much an exploited nation. Exploited through capitalism. If you go to India, you wouldn't think the infrastructure there is particularly great. A lot of people live very meager lives in India. And that is because their labor and the wealth that's created in India is exported into the capitalist structure, and the people who benefit the most from this sort of stuff are Western organizations that rely on Indian people to do call center jobs or software delivery or whatever else. The British did a lot of work trying to ruin that place. Oh, heaps. The British murdered almost 100 million Indians in 40 years, between 1880 and 1920. More in some estimations. They stole in today's money $60 trillion US dollars in some cases. Yeah. You guys should read this. So this article references a paper that's published in Science Direct. You guys should go check this out. It's called Capitalism and Extreme Poverty, a global analysis of real wages, human height, and mortality since the long 16th century. This is a really important paper. So the guys who wrote this paper wrote this article in Al Jazeera. They're called Dylan Sullivan and Jason Hickel. And they wrote this in their estimations. They think the higher figure is 165 million Indians were killed. 100 million is their sort of conservative number. So they did an analysis of excess deaths. We find that 165 million excess deaths occurred in India during the period from 1881 to 1920. Around this time, the British were taking food out of India. They were taking farmers were making food for Britain, and the farmers weren't getting their own food. So, like, this information exists. Britain fucked up India in so many ways, including strengthening and solidifying the caste system, right? Which is a massive issue today. So to say that India is back is crazy. Like it's not even fucking close. India's share of trade in the before Britain got there in the 1700s was about 26% of global trade. It had more global trade that it had more of the market share of global trade than all of Europe combined. And when Britain left in 1947, that global share of trade had dropped to under 3%. That's how complete Britain's bloodletting in India was. It was so complete. They had looted everything. The West is built on, a lot of the West is built on Indian money, like Indian wealth. But what you get with people like Modi is they are very subservient to the West. What I like to call house curries. They are the types of people who empowered Britain when they came to colonize. You know, those collaborators. Modi is one of them. He doesn't give a fuck about the Indian people. He is using the Hindu nationalist movement in order to continue to loot the people of India bit by bit. But yeah, it's insane to say that India is somehow like back to where it was or something. It's fucking insane. India is deeply impacted by what Britain did to it, even to this day.
Critical of the Western liberal order, but how is the Chinese model of a state that is repressive towards its own citizens a better alternative for the world?
If you ask Chinese people, let's compare it. Okay, Chinese people like
Modi
now,
fully
Chinese
backs
people in the
Israel.
past,
Yes, he
in my
does.
age, yeah, I have gone through Cultural Revolution before 1976. Was really, really horrible. And even the Chinese Communist Party has drawn the conclusion that this is the havoc.
Which is a distressing propaganda of the French colonization that the way it happened was way more progressive than the English Empire, bro. It was all bad. It was all bad shit. But the thing is, like, it's still going on. That's why when people say post-colonial world, when the fuck did colonization end? When did it end? No one can tell me when it ended because it hasn't. That's the world we live in today. And if you look at the IMF and the way it sees the world, the IMF still sees the world as a colonial world. The IMF absolutely sees the world as a still colonized world. So I don't understand where post-colonial even came into our vocabulary. I don't understand it. There is no post-colonial world. We live in a white supremacist world that has white privilege embedded in the very fabric of our societies. Everywhere, globally, white supremacy and white privilege are embedded in our global systems. It is a wealth extraction scheme that changed from direct colonization to colonization through proxy. It's still happening today. It's still very much happening today.
To the whole Chinese nation. And as today we are here, we're almost neck to neck to the United States. How can you believe that the second strongest economy in the world, is having a miserable life for all the Chinese people? It's impossible, right?
The thing is, when you say ask the Chinese people, that's the whole point. There are no mechanisms to poll public opinion in this country because you don't have the democratic pipelines. You don't have elections. You don't have a free press. You can't criticize the government.
Well, you see, to understand how people feel, you don't need such a sophisticated, polls. You look at the people's basket, look at what is inside the salary, and look at the GDP, right? And look at the China's growth rate.
Okay.
All this will tell you how Chinese people would feel.
All right, so you believe that the Chinese model is working for its people. Now, whether that's something that plays out on the global stage, we'll have to wait and see. But Senior Colonel, thank you very much.
And yeah, I go a little bit further than just identifying white supremacy and white privilege as the operating system of the world. It still is. It absolutely is. I go a little bit further and I say there is no class war, nor can there be a war against global patriarchic systems without dismantling white supremacy and white privilege. You just can't. And that should be our goal, to dismantle white supremacy and white privilege. That shouldn't exist anymore. Why are white people considered of higher value than anybody else? Because it's systemic. It's not one person. It's not one person. It's systemic. That and patriarchy. Patriarchy can't be dismantled without dismantling white supremacy and white privilege. You can't do it. The example I'll give you is a white woman in America fighting against her patriarchy versus a Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander woman or a Dalit woman fighting against their patriarchal systems. Who has more means? To fight their patriarchal systems? Who has more means? The white woman. The thing about Aboriginal woman, let's say an Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander woman fighting her patriarchal system, she doesn't have the benefit of white privilege helping her along. Unless and until systems like white privilege and white supremacy are dismantled, the means to fight patriarchy aren't going to be equitable around the world. Like, it's just not going to happen. So the most effective way for the working class to unite and for, you know, feminism to unite beyond just whiteness and every other demographic is to first dismantle white supremacy and white privilege. Otherwise, like, not everybody has the means to fight these other systems.
Much indeed
Thank
for
you.
talking to us and taking a
Okay. I want us, now that we're kind of talking about these issues, I want us to immerse ourselves a little bit
Franz Fanon
in
The
this.
storm that blows in
Whoa.
from Washington.
Hold up.
We can, however,
Hold up. I want to spotlight Franz Fanon. Do you guys know who Franz Fanon is? What do you mean patriarchy will never be dismantled? It's impossible. Bullshit. I disagree with that. That's not true. I think the patriarchy will be dismantled. Franz Fanon, the most dangerous black philosopher who ever lived. Black Stories Untold. Let's go.
Franz Fanon wrote a book so dangerous that France banned it the same day it published. While dying of leukemia in 1961, this black psychiatrist created something that turned college students into revolutionaries, got smuggled across borders and hollowed out Bibles, and made the CIA put him on a watch list. He raced against death to finish one final message to the colonized world. Your chains are in your mind. Violence will set you free, and your oppressors are more terrified of you than you've ever been of them. 3 months later, he was dead. His book is still igniting revolutions. What made one man's ideas worth killing? Fanon told colonized people worldwide that their mental enslavement mattered more than their physical chains, and that
How does white supremacy have anything to do with having respect towards women? Having respect towards women should be everyone's like default, but the patriarchy isn't about just having respect towards women. Patriarchy is a system. It's a whole system. It's a system that's been built by men for men, in particular white men. It's about dismantling that system. It's not just respecting women. Come on, man. Like, you're not that naive, surely. Well, that get me wondering, when we speak about white on white struggle / education, how do you feel we explain to white culture who argue that patriarchy exists parallel to the white dominion? It's just for men, though, not white men. Like, do you understand? Let me ask you this, King Lizard Blizzard. Do you understand that the system that's committing the genocide in Gaza is the same system that's committing the genocide in Sudan, is the same system that extracted wealth from India, is the same system that is currently extracting wealth from the DRC? Like, do you understand those things are the same thing?
force against oppressors wasn't just justified, it was psychologically necessary for liberation. Steve Biko built South Africa's black consciousness.
Yeah, that's the problem. And that's why you're asking these questions. It just doesn't feel like you've connected the dots between 600 years of European colonization and why the world is the way it is today. Like, that's not like you can stick around here and listen and educate yourself, or you could try and understand the journey of European colonization and the fact that it was based on white supremacy in the first place. The basis of European colonization was white supremacy.
Movement on his theories, Palestinian fighters and liberation movements from Bolivia to Ghana still quote his manifesto like scripture. They couldn't kill his ideas, and by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why empires still fear a dead man's words. But to understand why those words detonated across the world, you need to see where the explosion started. July 1925, Fort-de-France, Martinique. Frantz Fanon was born into a middle-class black family on a Caribbean island that looked like paradise, but functioned as a psychological prison. His parents scraped together money to send him to Lycée Victor Schellcher, the island's elite school. But what happened in those classrooms was calculated violence. Every morning, black children stood and recited "Our ancestors, the Gauls," memorizing French kings and European battles, while their actual ancestors lay in unmarked graves on sugar plantations. When young Fanon spoke Creole French, teachers scolded him for not using proper French. Speak Creole? Primitive. Mention African history? Ignorant. Only French mattered. French language, French heroes, French culture. One teacher refused to participate in this erasure. Aimé Césaire had just created the Negritude movement.
Europe. The Irish, we didn't colonize anyone. We were colonized. No, that's not true, though, Bulletproof Baldy. That's not true. I don't like this narrative as well. The Irish were taken by the British to the Caribbean as indentured labor and to North America. The Irish had rights to own land, but not just that. Irish people owned black slaves. Irish people owned black slaves. Okay? So, yeah, the Irish were considered human. So, for you to say, like Irish people didn't colonize anything, that's just false. That's false. That's a false narrative. Irish people have white privilege. Yes, it's on the outskirts of whiteness, but it's still very much privileged.
Movement, teaching that black identity was power, not shame. He planted seeds in Fanon's mind about pride and resistance, but seeds need fire to grow. 1940, Vichy fascists seized control of Martinique after France.
It's not about which country did we invade and colonize. Irish people were on the boats that colonized people, and Irish people took black slaves. And Irish people in the Americas, read a book called The Counter-Revolution of 1776. Very important read to see the role of Irish people as well within the umbrella of whiteness, who fought off the British and then made the United States of America independent. Like, Irish people were part of that. You can't just deny this history.
Fell to Hitler. Suddenly, French racism wasn't polite anymore. It became official policy. Fanon, 15 years old, watched the mask slip off. The civilized colonizers revealed themselves as brutal oppressors who had always been there, just hidden behind promises of equality. Fanon was 15 when he watched French civilization reveal its true face. 2 years later, he volunteered to die for it. At 17, Frantz Fanon joined the Free French Army in 1943, believing he was fighting for liberty and human dignity. He fought in the forests of Alsace, took shrapnel near Montbéliard, earned the Croix de Guerre for courage under fire. French officers pinned medals on his chest, then barred him from their mess halls because of his skin color. When Germany finally surrendered, Charles de Gaulle ordered every black soldier removed from formations entering German territory. France's victory parade couldn't have black faces visible in the photographs. The men who bled for France had to watch from the sidelines as white soldiers took credit for their sacrifice. Fanon wrote his brother Joby from Europe, "I've been deceived, and I am paying for my mistakes. I'm sick of it all." That letter marked the death of one Frantz Fanon and the birth of another, a man who would spend his life diagnosing and destroying the psychological machinery of white supremacy. Before we continue with how Fanon transformed his rage into the most feared revolutionary text of the 20th century, if you believe these stories of black intellectuals who terrified empires need to be heard, subscribe to Black Stories Untold. We're exposing the thinkers they tried to silence and the truths they spent millions covering up. Now, back to the video.
This is a bit like I'll play this. I'll play this instead. Sorry. Weirdly, I think a French news channel might have covered Frantz Fanon in a weird way. Let's see. Anti-colonialist.
Frantz Fanon, one of the foremost writers on anti-colonialism. His book, Black Skin, White Masks, dissects the mechanisms of racism.
Yeah, Black Skin, White Masks. If you haven't read that, if you haven't read Black Skin, White Masks, read it, please. It is an incredible book to unmask, to a book that unravels so much about not just black attitudes, because it fits very, very well with brown attitudes as well, on their own oppression. It's very good. It's very, very good. I finished that recently.
J'ai lu ce livre, ça m'a éclairé.
A writer, but also a psychiatrist, Fanon was sent to French Algeria in 1953, where he transformed his psychiatric ward and restored a sense of dignity to his patients.
Il va mettre en place des choses formidables. C'était vraiment très beau à voir.
A professional and political commitment.
All
Fanon
good.
actively
Yeah,
fought
boy,
for
John Doe.
Algerian
All good.
independence.
I agree.
La fin logique de cette lutte est la libération totale du territoire national.
Since the 1950s, he's inspired countless activists, intellectuals, and artists.
Irish people have committed heinous crimes in America and have also been the victims of prejudice in certain cases. It doesn't make Irish people special. I mean, all I want to say is, like, yes, the British can't wait to tell the farmers down the pub. Yeah, but that's the thing, Bulletproof Baldy. I know the thing you're feeling right now, is the same sort of thing that, say, a British person would feel when you point out their white supremacy and white privilege, right? It's this sense of, like, lack of acknowledging your own history. I understand that there is a sense of, like, feeling in Ireland about the British colonial system and having some sort of knowledge of what it feels like to be colonized by Europe. But you got to understand that you do have white privilege, and Irish people have always, like, if you read The Counter-Revolution of 1776 by Gerald Horne, he poses how white people in North America, in the now United States, came together under the umbrella of whiteness. Irish people were very much part of that. And the reason why white people came under the went under the umbrella of whiteness was to fight the British, but also to maintain slavery. The British were looking to abolish the notion of slavery at that time, and white people in America, including Irish people, were wanting to keep black slaves. And let's not forget the Irish people who united with the rest of whiteness in Northern America were colonizers. Right? Like it's a tough pill to swallow, but must be swallowed nonetheless.
J'ai la même vision de la France que Frantz Fanon.
What mark has Frantz Fanon left on our world today, 100 years after his birth in Martinique?
Quand il avait 8 ou 10 ans, il était à l'école primaire. Avec toute la classe, on avait l'habitude aux Antilles d'emmener les enfants rendre hommage à Schœlcher, à la statue de Schœlcher, qui avait libéré les Noirs de l'esclavage. Et le petit garçon, brusquement, se demande, mais avant Schœlcher, qu'est-ce qu'il y avait avant, dont on ne m'a jamais parlé, ni dans la famille, ni à l'école? Et c'était l'esclavage.
For the first time, I understood that the story being told to me was rooted in denial, that I was being shown a falsified vision of things. I kept playing sports and going to the cinema, but nothing was the same anymore. It was as if my eyes and ears had been opened.
Fanon, comme beaucoup d'Antillais,
bro, if you live in Ireland and are white Irish, then you know that you have some white privilege. You saw the loyalist anti-immigration riots in your own country. Yeah, it's not just that though, BBL Ben Shapiro. Great name, by the way. It's also Irish people, white Irish people in Aotearoa, New Zealand. They have white privilege here. Irish people in America, in the United States, in Canada, or wherever, they get white privilege. Absolutely, they get white privilege. It is what it is. Like, it is what it is. We have to confront and dismantle white supremacy. White supremacy and white privilege everywhere it exists. Like, these systems of oppression are everywhere. People should be able to live where they want to live as long as you respect the people in place that you're at. Yeah, I think the mistake we make is that it's like individuals who are doing this. It's not like an individual white Irish person who comes to New Zealand knows that they have white privilege. It's the system that enables it. Because in New Zealand, for example, Aotearoa, New Zealand, white people came here and almost like tried very hard, even today, are trying very hard to destroy Maori culture, completely destroy the founding purpose of this country. They're still trying to do it, right? And that system that's trying to do it enables white privilege. And that is a system built on a country where settlers came here, signed a document. The British settlers signed a document with the indigenous Maori people here, and then went on to absolutely demolish that agreement for the next, 143 years or however long it's been. 163 years, 183 years maybe. But that's what happened. It's just been completely taken advantage of. Maori people have. and their sovereignty has been stolen. So yeah, that's the system that has built white supremacy and white privilege into every fabric of New Zealand society.
A entendu cet appel de Gaulle pour
just like that system has built white supremacy and white privilege into French society, or into the United States, society, or Australian society, or now the Palestinian society. It's all that same system of oppression.
Rejoindre les forces françaises. Et à 17 ans, c'est très jeune, il s'engage. C'est quand il rejoint son bataillon qu'il comprend que tous les Antillais sont discriminés de par leur couleur de peau. Ça, c'était une de ses premières prises de conscience.
Whoa! Oliver Fanon, son of Frantz Fanon. Wow, ledge.
Et sa lettre à ses parents en a été l'aboutissement.
It's been a year.
But it's not only white people. They had the biggest impact worldwide, but it's not only the white thing. I don't understand why. I mean, yeah, there are local structures of oppression, absolutely, but globally speaking, European colonization was and still is the largest man-made suffering ever. Like, I don't think that should be hard to acknowledge. It just sounds like, to me, when people say this, Freshonen, it's the lack of acknowledgement of your own environment. You're in France, right? Do you think France got the way it did because of ingenuity? No, France violently murdered Africans and a lot of people in Asia and took their shit. And then you got what you got, like buildings and nice stuff. Yeah. It's not that the white people are the only ones. It's just that whiteness did it on an industrial scale for 600 years, and it's still doing it today.
Years since I left Fort-de-France. Why? To defend an obsolete ideal. Never say he died for a noble cause. I was wrong. Nothing here, nothing justifies this sudden decision to defend farmers' interests when they themselves don't care.
Peau noire, masque blanc est un peu le miroir que Fanon a écrit en s'adressant aux Antillais ou autres qui veulent se blanchir. Toutes les références sont blanches. Donc du coup, forcément, tu prends des codes. Donc à un moment, moi, quand j'ai commencé à comprendre, on va dire vers les coups de 14-13 ans, que cette aliénation dans laquelle on voulait me mettre en me déculturant n'avait aucun avenir, j'ai commencé à lire Fanon. Et c'est à ce moment-là qu'il y a eu la bascule.
Frustration complexe, à bout dans mon cortex. Peau noire, masque blanc, on laisse plus d'un perplexe. Frustration complexe, à bout dans mon cortex. Peau noire, masque blanc, on laisse...
Avant le championnat d'Europe au Portugal en 2004, j'ai acheté beaucoup de livres de Frantz Fanon, Peau noire, masque blanc, et j'ai offert ces livres-là.
France plus Vietnam equals banh mi. Yeah, also France plus Vietnam equals like millions of murdered Vietnamese people. I hope that was a joke, Fluid Pandas. It's like the craziest thing, right? When people say, "Oh, the British gave India English, and the British gave India cricket." It's like, bro, imagine like. It's like you can have your fucking cricket back and you can have your fucking English back if you pay the 63 trillion. It's like the most stupid fucking thing.
Aux joueurs noirs de l'équipe de France. Et donc pour moi,
and the railroads. Don't forget the fucking railroads, everybody.
On peut prendre la parole. Parce que pour moi, en fait, je me disais, il y a trop peu de joueurs noirs qui prennent la parole pour dénoncer le racisme. Oh. Et après coup, je me suis dit, ça quelques années plus tard, que ce livre-là, en fait, tout le monde doit le lire. Pas simplement les joueurs noirs. Tout le monde doit le lire parce qu'encore une fois, le racisme impacte, peu importe votre couleur de peau. Cette histoire est tellement ancienne, est tellement ancrée dans nos...
Hey, Hitler made some great roads, the noisy immigrant, don't forget that. Yeah, that's true. You mean the Autobahn? Oh, gosh. Of course, joke. Important to know the history of food. Yeah, I guess so.
Que nous devons le lire pour percevoir ce qu'on ne perçoit pas.
I've been trying to tell people in the UK that the people on boats are not coming to take your shit or dismantle your parliament and government. Was I wrong? Yeah, the more important to tell people in the UK about the people coming on the boats is because they're leaving their home because the UK is sponsoring the UAE to murder the UAE and other proxies to murder their families and take their homes and their land and is displacing them. The only just thing to do is open the fucking borders. You understand me? Like, it's not about, I don't give a fuck about the fragility of them taking their jobs. Immigration into the Europe in particular is reparations. And as long as Europe still gets its advantage by stealing it and murdering these people, there's no way the UK should be closing any of its borders. It's idiotic. You can't create the suffering and then close your own borders. That's not how international law should work. I'm sorry, but if the people in the UK are worried, it's because they're white supremacists and they're racist. And yeah, I mean, I wouldn't discount that.
Alors Blida, qui est l'endroit où Fanon arrive en Algérie, à l'hôpital de psychiatrie de Blida, c'est pour moi l'endroit, le catalyseur où il se révèle.
It's funny, after I said all of that, Bulletproof Baldy, after I said all of that Europe is creating that situation, the only thing you could do is they are right to be worried. Like, this is what Europe does. This is what whiteness does. It does the most horrific fucking shit and then makes itself the victim. And then blames the victim for all of the death and suffering. It's the most ridiculous thing that whiteness does. I don't understand why that happens all the time.
C'est là où il prend son poste de médecin-chef. C'est cet endroit où justement il rencontre ce qu'il y a de plus violent dans la colonisation française.
Détachez-les. Monsieur le directeur n'acceptera jamais. Appelez vos collègues. Faites ce que je vous dis. Faites-le vous-même.
Le fait que Fanon découvre ces malades algériens attachés.
You can't have all the living standards that you have by stealing from these people, by taking from these people, by taking from their labor, by taking from their land, by taking from taking their lives, and then go, okay, we're going to close the borders off now. But that's what Europe has done for 600 years, right? Like, that's actually quite a European thing to do. It's just, what I'm telling you is, if there was any justice in the world, there would be no European border closed. None.
Déshumanisé et puis complètement enfermé dans un taudis, ça lui permet aussi de comprendre que son chemin va essayer de les remettre dans une sorte d'humanité.
J'étais une petite jeune fille qui voulait que ça change en Algérie. Je voulais aussi faire de la psychiatrie. C'est comme ça qu'on s'est retrouvés, que je me suis...
If anything, Shiny, it's the other way around. It's Europe that has destroyed the country's governments from where people are trying to leave. It's Europe. It's America. It's white supremacy that's done it. And then they're scared of that happening to themselves. It's so evil, man. It's so fucking evil.
Je retrouvais, travailler avec Fanon de psychiatrique, et il y avait pas mal de choses à faire, on peut dire.
Le monde colonisé est un monde coupé en deux.
Vous ne les connaissez pas, ils sont dangereux. Vous croyez que vous allez changer la nature des Nord-Africains?
Ce sont des hommes comme vous et moi.
Quand Fanon arrive, d'abord on ne dit pas algérien, à l'époque on dit indigène musulman. Et en plus, il y avait cette théorie que les indigènes musulmans, ils étaient irrécupérables. Tout ça était vraiment, c'était sordide.
Vegan commie superstar, welcome. Did I say welcome to you? I don't know if I did, but welcome. It's projection at the highest level, man. It's
Vraiment très
crazy.
sordide. Et c'est là qu'il va mettre en place des choses formidables. C'était vraiment très beau à voir.
Je travaille avec vous. On dit que vous ouvrez des brèches dans une psychiatrie coloniale complètement dépassée.
Ce qu'on appelle la social thérapie, c'est-à-dire il crée des jardins. Les matchs de foot font partie aussi de son process. Le théâtre, de la peinture, il leur donne vraiment beaucoup d'activités. C'est lui qui a ouvert la mosquée de l'hôpital. C'est lui qui a ouvert le café.
Heure troublée en Algérie, où en plusieurs endroits du territoire, une série d'attentats ont été commis dans la nuit qui précéda la Toussaint. On parle de fellaga et de complots organisés par certaines ligues musulmanes. Mais l'Algérie ne se prêtera pas au rôle souhaité par les agitateurs.
On se rappelle que l'Algérie était en guerre. Il a été approché donc par les camarades terroristes pour les rallier. Donc il n'a pas hésité une seconde. Et il avait une double vie, qui était connue par les maquisards du FLN.
Wow.
Il avait une double vie. Il soignait les malades donc hospitalisés. Et parallèlement, il soignait aussi des blessés qui étaient évacués donc, par les camarades combattants et qui faisaient admettre comme des malades psychiatriques. Donc, il faisait de faux billets d'admission à l'hôpital. Et le soir même, il allait sur les hauteurs de Blida, dans les montagnes de Shrea, avec des camarades médecins. Et ils allaient soigner sur place les Algériens qui étaient victimes de l'armée française.
For nearly 3 years, I gave myself entirely to this country and to its people. I spared neither effort nor enthusiasm. But what are enthusiasm and human concern worth when daily reality is woven from lies, cowardice, and contempt for humanity?
Il a écrit au général Lacoste, qui était le ministre résident de l'Algérie, une lettre de démission.
Yeah. Exactly, bulletproof. That's the thing. It's the Syrians didn't go there to dismantle a government. They went there because, the UK bombed Syria. It's the sad state of it, guys. It's the sad state of the world. And I jokingly said the other day that now with Europe being the continent, or as I like to call it, the West Asian Peninsula, can we please normalize calling Europe the West Asian Peninsula, please, is now the hottest or the landmass that's heating at the highest rate. With what power? So it's like it's climate change is having a huge impact in Europe. In the West Asian Peninsula. And my thing is like, pretty soon, Europeans are going to cross that border, are going to want to cross that border with Africa, are going to want to cross that border with the Middle East. Right? It's going to happen. Like, it's getting hotter from now on. It's getting hotter. It's going to get more uncomfortable. It's going to get more fucked. There's going to be displacement from Europe too. There's going to be displacement from Europe too. But it's hotter there. It's not. It's what's happening in Europe. What's happening in Europe is a special kind of thing because it's not just hot. It's also going to be very wet when it comes to the winter. it's going to be floods and then fires. Like, Europe is going to get fucked. Sorry, the West Asian Peninsula is going to get fucked. And when people do flee, I hope they realize what that feels like when it does happen. I try to propagate that take that Europe is no geographical continent and Middle Easterners or Asians before being Arabs, yeah. They just made this piece of land like a whole continent when it's really not at all. It's such a privileged thing to do, eh? Fuck, even that.
Dans laquelle il disait qu'il ne pouvait plus collaborer à cette opération de colonisation et qu'il ne pouvait plus être le complice de l'armée française. Quelques jours après, il y a eu un arrêté d'expulsion qui a été pris contre lui et il a rejoint donc l'ALN à Tunis.
They'll insist on being called expats instead of immigrants like usual. Yeah, exactly. Oh, I hate it when people call themselves expats, man. Oh, it's so bad. They've made immigrant such a slur. They tried to make immigrant a slur, but then I made it my name.
Mon père était un des membres du gouvernement algérien de la République algérienne provisoire, le PRA. Je me souviens des réunions surtout qui avaient lieu à la maison avec ma mère et tous les membres du gouvernement provisoire.
Yeah, white people in like Dubai are calling themselves expats. It's so fucking hilarious.
C'était fait dans une sécurité maximale. Bon, j'avais 5 ans. J'étais vraiment très impressionné par toute cette animation autour de mon père. Et pour moi, mon père était l'homme le plus important dans ma vie, quoi.
Yeah, I need to read The Wretched of the Earth. This is very high on my reading list.
Les Damnés de la Terre, donc, qui était le dernier livre que mon père a écrit, constitue pas le testament de Fanon, puisque Fanon n'est pas une fin en soi. Fanon est en action.
C'est la violence exercée par le colonisateur qui provoque un désarroi et une sidération chez le colonisé, et de cette sidération surgit une violence qui peut, dit même Fanon, soit s'adresser au voisin qui a 2 moutons de plus que vous, etc., et qui doit être organisé en lutte pour la libération. Et il ajoute, la violence et la haine ne sauraient constituer un programme.
Tous les damnés de la Terre sont concernés par Fanon. On peut aujourd'hui, sans aller très loin, en restant en France départementale, en Kanaki, en Nouvelle-Calédonie.
The Kanaki in New Caledonia, yeah. You can't forget that. The Kanaki in New Caledonia, a French colony, and the Kanaki are the indigenous people of New Caledonia, and France has been doing some real bad shit in New Caledonia. Like even recently, insane.
Il y a des Fanons en Nouvelle-Calédonie. Donc pour moi, Fanon est toujours vivant. Et ses idées, ses écrits sont d'autant plus d'actualité aujourd'hui.
Le choc émotionnel que j'ai eu lorsque j'ai subi le racisme pour la première fois. J'avais 9 ans, je ne savais pas comment me défendre. Donc j'ai été voir ma mère, je lui ai dit, écoute, on m'a traité de sale noir, mais pourquoi ? Et elle m'a donné cette réponse, elle m'a dit, c'est comme ça, les gens sont racistes. Ça veut dire que c'est une fatalité. Et c'est pour ça que je dis qu'il faut lire François Fanon, pour comprendre que ce n'est pas une fatalité. D'accord ? Ce n'est pas une fatalité. C'est une construction politique, c'est une construction liée à une idéologie économique, parce que ça aussi, c'est très très important.
Fanon est mort à l'âge de 36 ans d'une leucémie myéloïde à...
Oh, Mudmore, thank you so much for the gifted sub. Old Al Hooten. Thank you so much, Mudmore. Thank you.
un hôpital, l'hôpital Bethesda du côté de Washington, qui est un hôpital militaire.
What shocks me here, lying in this bed as I feel my strength leaving me, is not dying, but dying in Washington of leukemia, when I could have died 3 months ago facing the enemy. We are nothing on this earth unless we are first the slaves of a cause, the cause of the people, the cause of justice and freedom.
Mm-hmm. Let me just listen to that one more time, please.
Washington, qui est un hôpital militaire.
What shocks me here, lying in this bed as I feel my strength leaving me, is not dying, but dying in Washington of leukemia, when I could have died 3 months ago facing the enemy. We are nothing on this earth unless we are first the slaves of a cause, the cause of the people, the cause of justice and freedom.
Fuck yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes. Yes, Mr. Fanon. Yes. That was so sick. Oh my gosh. I love that. I love that. Oh, I just love that. I love that. That whole mindset. That whole mindset of like just that liberation talk. It's beautiful when you know a person like Fanon truly understood what liberation meant. You know, a movement for all, not just a few against the powers of oppression, the systems of oppression. Like a man who truly understood that liberation was for all. Yeah, I know, Freshen, I know immigrants are there to stay is the difference. That's fine. That's the textbook definition of what expat and immigrants are supposed to be. But with it comes, it is a privileged word, that it has become a privileged status. Even some people who've lived in a place for 10 years will call themselves expats, because at some stage they'll leave and go back to where they came from. But it's become a term of privilege rather than anything else. Black and brown people are immigrants the moment they step foot. Yeah. Black and brown people are immigrants the moment they step foot anywhere else. Was Gandhi a good man? Not really. Not much at all. I am not a big Gandhi fan, honestly. Let's listen to Mark Carney talking about this trade deal. Mark Carney on the trade negotiations with the U.S.
Chart a new course by building Canada strong at home and diversifying our trading relationships abroad. Nous sommes met chez...
Wait, why is it out of sync?
The storm that blows in from Washington. We can, however...
Okay, that's out of sync.
The Prime Minister has just come to the podium. Dominic LeBlanc, Janice Charette are there with him, the trade negotiators. Let's listen in to Prime Minister Mark Carney.
To update Canadians on developments in our trade negotiations with the United States. I'm going to go through why we're walking away from a bad deal and what comes next. Pendant une bonne partie de notre histoire, les Canadiens et les Canadiens ont pu
Canadians could rely on favorable trade and a stable relationship with the United States, more and more open access to the U.S. market, and rules that both countries understood and abided by.
Guys, I'm just gonna use the bathroom quickly and get another coffee. Give me 2 minutes. 4 minutes. Okay? 4 minutes. 4 minutes while I am gone, how about you listen to some incredible music by Enya and Bobby Schmurder. Hey! Some AI slop! What? Lula! I see you're loving this. I must visit Enya in her castle. Yo! Local disruptor, welcome. Welcome. I don't like rap music in general. Someone told me that makes me a racist. What do you think? What sort of question is that, bro? What the fuck? Do you really think about this? Is that real?
No.
Do you not like rap because... Do you not like rap because of black people? Like, why do you not like rap?
But that did not just change direction. The climate also changed.
We can't control the storm that blows in from Washington. We can, however, chart a new course by building Canada strong at home and diversifying our trading relationships abroad. Nous sommes maîtres chez nous.
We are masters in our own home.
Par excellence à l'étranger.
And an excellent partner abroad.
Canada has worked intensively and in good faith with the United States to negotiate a new comprehensive trade deal.
Sniper.
We've been pragmatic, patient, and persistent. We pursued every opportunity to reach an agreement that protects Canadian workers and their families, that strengthens our economy, and that respects Canadian sovereignty. We've been under no illusions. We recognized from the start that America has changed. Early last year in this room, I observed that the decades-long process of steadily increasing integration between our economies was over. Our government understood before many that America would transform all of its commercial relationships, that it would put a series of tariffs on its closest allies and use economic integration as a weapon. We recognize that sometimes its signature was written in pencil. We worked in that context to try to strike a fair deal on which Canadian businesses and workers could rely. Our goal has always been to get the best deal for...
Freshered, I think you might be racist, trying your best to not be racist. I don't know, but at least a bigot anyway. But, you know.
Canadians, never a deal at any price or on any time frame. Last month, when the United States announced another round of unjustified tariffs, I gave our negotiating team a new mandate to seek a fair deal negotiated in good faith. Because I believe that people on the ground, on both sides of our border, want this relationship to work. The bonds between Canadians and Americans are long, and they remain strong. A mutually beneficial trade agreement is possible, one that respects our sovereignty, one that builds on our complementary strengths, one that lowers costs for families on both sides of the border, one that creates good jobs for our workers. Canada has always worked towards these goals, even while America's attention and dedication to them have wavered. We've consistently proposed long-term partnerships, while America has often pursued short-term transactions.
They only, America wanted no strings attached. One and done. You could call it an economic one-night stand. But we wanted a longer relationship.
The gap between partnership and competitor, unfortunately, has remained too wide in recent days. So last evening,
Get the pie, Magic Thighs. Get the pie.
I instructed our negotiators to return to Ottawa. We cannot accept what they've offered, and we will not give what they've asked. Over the past year, the U.S. has imposed a series of tariffs that violate its commitment under our agreement with them in Mexico, so-called CUSMA. The United States has continually changed their rationale for these actions, from fentanyl to taxes on U.S. tech giants, to certification of U.S. aircraft, to the sharing of tolls of a bridge that Canada built and paid for, to our dairy policy, to provincial decisions not to sell American alcohol during the trade war, to a television advertisement that quoted Ronald Reagan.
Look, guys, it was about time in world history when white people started fighting each other with white bodies and not black and brown bodies, you know. I just think it's about time. Like if there's, you know, if Europe erupts in war, it's not going to be a world war anymore because the colonies are not going to get involved. Sorry, that was dark. I'm so sorry.
To smoke from wildfires while they threatened our communities. Another prominent justification for U.S. tariffs has been their claim that since the United States runs, quote, a trade deficit with Canada, we were ripping them off. Also a quote. But the U.S.'s narrow merchandise trade deficit only exists because the U.S. buys so much of its energy from Canada.
Well, if Donald Trump is so keen to make, you know, America such a white country, then yeah, black and brown people don't enlist. Don't fight for your country. It doesn't matter. Why enlist? By the way, if New Zealand starts enlisting, I will not enlist because they will 100% be fighting on the side of evil. I know it. I'd rather have nobody die, to be honest, but I'd rather have white people fight their own battles. Yeah.
Canada fuels American growth, supplying 99% of their natural gas imports, 85% of their electricity imports.
When have Russians ever been considered white? When have Russians ever been considered white? When? 20 million Chinese people were killed by Japan. There were more Asian people. Asian and black people killed in World War II than there were Western Europeans, than the Allies in Europe.
60% of their crude oil imports. I don't think they want us to stop sending any of that energy. And if you look more broadly at the comprehensive U.S.-Canada trade balance, which includes the many services from finance to entertainment that we buy from the United States, that shows a persistent American trade surplus. Most fundamentally, trade is about building mutual strength.
Slavic people have only ever had a temporary visa into the umbrella of whiteness. Eastern Europeans have not been considered white. In fact, Western Europe was enslaving Eastern Europeans for a long time. Eastern European weren't considered equal human beings.
Creating a relationship that benefits both countries. For example, Canada is the largest customer for U.S. cars. In fact, we buy more American-built cars and trucks than the United Kingdom, Japan, and China combined. It's the same for American steel products. Canada is also the largest customer for 26 U.S. states and a top 3 customer for 45 U.S. states. Last year, Americans sold almost $600 billion in goods and services to Canadians. That's more than $1.6 billion every single day. On the other hand, Canadian exports to the United States lower costs for American families. In contrast, tariffs are taxes. Taxes which are ultimately paid by U.S. consumers.
You're Slavic, local disruptor. Yeah, I mean, you'll know what I mean. I don't think Slavic people are considered white. I don't think even now, I think Slavic people are seen as on the periphery of whiteness. Like I remember when Polish people used to go to Britain a fair bit, and they were treated like shit in Britain. Polish people were seen as the cheaper working class. A Slavic American.
While the United States has imposed a seemingly endless stream of tariffs and threatened more, Canada has, by contrast, taken several steps in good faith to try to find compromise and secure a comprehensive deal in the best interests of both Canadians and Americans.
In that way, Irish people are very similar as well. Like, Irish people are on the periphery of whiteness when it comes to, like, Western Europe. But overseas, I think that all goes away. Overseas, I think whiteness somehow unites in a stronger way. Most Western Europe, the Polish are the dumb one in the joke. Oh, really?
Nos négociateurs ont cherché non seulement réduire les droits de douane,
sought not only to lower the tariffs, but also to restore a degree of certainty and stability through a new comprehensive agreement that Canadian businesses and workers could rely on. Which brings me to the most recent negotiations.
Last month, the U.S. announced that effective August 19th, it would impose 50% tariffs on a series of industries ranging from hockey equipment to clothing, cement, and beer. The only advantage of this latest threat was that it was a catalyst for more intensive negotiations. Our objectives in these latest talks have been to preserve tariff-free access to the U.S. for the vast majority of Canadian businesses. Secondly, to provide greater stability to our trade relationship. Thirdly, to significantly reduce U.S. tariffs on our key strategic industries so that Canadian businesses in these sectors would have the best access of any in the world. Fourth, protect our small and medium-sized businesses, including by removing the imminent threat of those new tariffs. And fifth, fundamentally, maintain Canada's flexibility, independence, and sovereignty so we can keep building the country Canadians want. Canada has made offers to secure a fair, comprehensive deal that would be in the best interests of Canadians. We were willing to drop our remaining retaliatory tariffs on strategic sectors, particularly steel, aluminum, and autos, if the United States substantially lowered theirs to levels that made it economic for Canadian companies to export to the United States.
Oh, really?
In exchange for a fair deal, we would encourage our provinces to return U.S. alcohol to the shelves. And we would take administrative measures to protect supply management without changing the system itself, the U.S. quotas, or the tariffs that would apply. There were some things we wouldn't do. We were not prepared to compromise Canada's sovereignty or to undermine our key industries. We
were not prepared to accept any compromise on our sovereignty, protection of the French language, and our culture. For our American colleagues, let's be clear. For my government and for Canada, these questions were never on the table, even if the United States tried to put them there up till the last minute.
Now, in recent weeks, there had been important progress made towards a possible agreement, an agreement that would have reinforced Canada's position as having the best deal in the world with the United States, including by securing the best terms for each of our most important strategic sectors and by providing greater certainty about our future trading relationship. And while we believed earlier this week that we were moving towards a mutually beneficial agreement, in recent days the United States proposed new terms that were uneconomic, unfair, and undermined the net benefits for Canada.
This is the bit.
And called into question the reliability of any deal. In short, they asked too much and they offered too little. More fundamentally, the cumulative effect of U.S. demands revealed the limits of their commitment to a true economic partnership. As I said earlier, as a result, last evening I suspended trade negotiations with the United States and directed our negotiators to return to Ottawa. I want to thank Minister LeBlanc. And
one of the key things that America requested was exclusivity in some cases, and for Canada to cut trade with other people that they saw as that Americans saw as targets. And one of those, in my opinion, was China. He doesn't say China, but he wants Carney to get off Xi's nuts. And I feel like Carney said, no, we're not going to stop trading with China. Why would they stop trading with China? I just don't get it. Like that, I think that was one of the big requests that America would have asked, and China and Canada would have said no. Because that's exclusivity. Once America starts to make decisions for you, it's fucked. Canadians just need to team up with more Germany as far as industry goes. You think so? Germany has got a failing economy at the moment. Germany is about to start voting in like far right reactionaries, like the AfD. Didn't AfD just win like a local election yesterday or something? Phil, like, it feels we've been doing some analysis. We've been doing some analysis on the German economic situation. I'm not saying the AfD will come through. There's still a bit of time for the election and stuff, so things may change. But the German economy at the moment is struggling. The German economy at the moment is struggling, right? It's not what it used to be, and its reliance on China has increased a lot. So, yeah, I don't see what the advantage of, but Canada's part of the G7, so it has trade partnerships with Germany and other European states, right? So, I don't know what else they can do. Like, what else are you suggesting?
Our chief negotiator, Janice Charette, their team, they've worked hard in good faith right up to the last minute to defend the interests of Canadians. Now, Canada will match Washington's new tariffs dollar for dollar in order to protect Canadian workers, farmers, families, and businesses. Our response will be concentrated in sectors such as steel, dairy, appliances, agricultural equipment, pulp and paper, and electronics. Also include products that are currently subject to unjustified Section 232 and 338 tariffs. This is a focused response to protect and defend our industries and allow them to compete with U.S. products in the Canadian market. In the coming days, we'll release details of these new tariff measures which will come into force the Tuesday after Labor Day. Let me be clear. We take this step reluctantly. Reluctantly because we recognize that some of these measures will raise costs and reduce choice for Canadians. Reluctantly because we recognize that some U.S. companies and some U.S. states are innocent bystanders in a dispute that they did not want. Reluctantly because this trade dispute is preventing Canada and America from doing so much good that we could do together. But at the same time, we take this step confident that it is in the best interest of Canada, and that by rejecting a bad deal, by standing up for Canada, by focusing on what we can control, we will build Canada strong for all. Building at home and diversifying trade abroad is not our plan B. It has been our plan A from the start. Canada will continue to pursue this path to build Canada strong because it's right and because it's working. We're moving rapidly to build major infrastructure. We've already referred 20...
Canada has made a shitload of money during this time when oil prices have been high. Canada has benefited a shitload.
7 nation-building initiatives to the new major projects office, new ports, mines, energy corridors from every region of the country that now represent $500 billion in new private investment. Projects that will help Canada build bigger, move faster, and trade more with the world.
Thanks to build.
We are so clearly in a dystopia world. It's because it doesn't look like nuclear apocalypse at the same time. It's not bad enough to do something about it. Ooh.
Canada homes. We are accelerating the construction of affordable homes. In just a few months, that new agency has committed to building more than 17,000 housing units through 17 partnerships. We are also building local infrastructure that Canadians can rely on every single day, thanks to the Build Strong Communities Fund, which represents an investment of $51 billion. More than 100 projects have already been announced right across the country, and they include new hospitals, new community centers, and new public transit lines as part of agreements with Yukon, Northwest Territories, Nunavut, Ontario, and Quebec. We will also double the capacity of our electrical grid by 2050 so that Canadians have access to affordable and sustainable energy for...
I'm saying movies about dystopian worlds have brainwashed people into not realizing that we are in a dystopia right now. Oh yeah, 100%.
For generations to come, because controlling our energy means controlling our...
The biggest dystopia that we're experiencing right now is the fact that there is a mass a mass extermination, an extermination of the Palestinian people happening right in front of our faces, and nothing is being done. I think that, to me, is the biggest dystopian moment, because this guy's talking about trade, etc., and there is literal extermination happening. And I just can't, like, the two things in my head at the same time is kind of fucking all of my perspective, because I'm like, on the one hand, this guy's talking about a trade war with America, and I'm like, oh yeah, let the whites fight. And then on the other hand, I'm like, bro, they're committing genocide. It's hard, man. It's hard.
Our destiny.
Just last Monday in St. John's, The governments of Canada, Quebec, Newfoundland, and Labrador launched the single largest investment in Canada's history to build the
Labrador. Labrador.
largest clean energy project in North America ever. Une deuxième baie James.
A second James Bay.
Enough clean electricity to power every single vehicle in Canada. We're building our economy while taking charge of our security.
In the US, the biggest dystopia for me is that the economy is failing, but the stock market keeps going up. Yeah. Transfer of wealth. It's insane. How can it all be happening at the same time as well? It's something's got to give.
By investing $500 billion into our defense, expanding our shipyards, growing our aerospace industry, increasing our cyber capabilities. And we're realizing Canada's full potential as an energy superpower in nuclear, LNG, renewables, and low carbon oil and gas. These are the initiatives that are the future of our country. Canada is now the best connected economy in the world. Over the last year, we have signed more than 20 trade and security deals across 5 continents. We completed our most recent deal with the United Arab Emirates in a record 47 days.
The United Arab Emirates. Why are you signing trade deals with the United Arab Emirates when they're committing genocide in Sudan? No, stop it.
Canadian businesses now enjoy tariff-free access to 1.5 billion consumers. Over the next...
Oh, wait. You know why they signed it? It's because they're helping the UAE, folks. They're helping the UAE. Even Canada has not prescribed the RSF as a terrorist organization. Just so you're aware.
Next 6 months, we'll double that number through new trade deals from ASEAN to India. Cet automne,
this fall, we will begin discussions with the European Union, the second largest economy in the world, to deepen and strengthen our economic and security partnership.
Canada is building such unparalleled market access because we're trusted, because we're reliable, and because we have what the world wants. That's why the world is coming to our door. In just 3 weeks, we'll host the first Canadian Investment Summit in Toronto. The summit is attracting the world's largest investors who collectively manage over $100 trillion in assets. When they get here, they'll find a Canadian economy that has never been more connected or more ambitious. Nous réduisons les impôts.
We are lowering tax. We are removing barriers and accelerating the transformation of our economy. We lowered the tax rate on new business investments to only 13%, which is 4.5 percentage points lower than in the United States and approximately half of the G7 average. We are accelerating the process to approve new investments, making them more predictable, while also investing with the private sector. We are building one Canadian economy. Over the last year, we eliminated all federal barriers to internal trade. We also relaxed conditions so that Canadian workers can use their skills right across the country. We are also working with the provinces and territories to remove barriers that have divided our economy for generations. At the same time, we are taking steps so that Canadians can buy Canadian, hire Canadian workers, and build with Canadian materials more easily.
Budget 2026, we will go further to make Canada even more competitive and attractive for businesses and strategic investors to build, invest, and grow. The new U.S. tariffs are designed to hurt us and divide us. They're a miscalculation. They're a miscalculation because Canadians will always take care of each other. We know we're stronger together. In the last year and a half, Canadians have met this moment with resolve, with purpose, with strength. In many ways, vacationing in national parks, buying Canadian products, choosing Canadians, small acts of solidarity, repeated millions of times that make a statement. We're masters of our destiny. This government is matching that spirit with $25 billion to protect Canadian workers and businesses hurt by American tariffs. We're helping small and medium-sized businesses respond by investing in equipment, in productivity, and supply chain resilience. And we're financing large companies to keep large employers operating and to retain their workers. We're helping those hardest-hit industries retool and pivot to those new international markets. And we are being our own best customer. We have the right plan to build Canada strong. We're on track, and it's working. At the same time, we recognize that some of the biggest payoffs of this plan, of this transformation, will take time. And that's why we're also focused on giving Canadians a boost today and a bridge to that better tomorrow. So we've cut taxes on incomes, on housing, and on gas. We've introduced the Canada Groceries and Essential Benefits, up to $1,890 per family, helping 12 million Canadians get ahead.
Okay. Well, look. Let me go to the kitchen view. It's called the kitchen view. This is the kitchen view, okay? Let me just speak to you guys here. Let me speak to you. Let me look directly into your eyes. Hello. Let me look you in the eyes and just say, I truly think America oh dear, America is starting, or I guess America is well down the path of becoming extremely isolated in global politics. Weirdly, America might feel like it's succeeding on so many fronts because the line is going up, right? The Dow is at an all-time high. But America's isolating itself. And the people of the world are starting to finally, or have seen, over the last 3 years in particular, what the West as a whole stands for. And I think America has really fragmented the West so much here that I don't know if it's a savable situation. Because there's still 2 more years of this shit. I think the amount of damage to the American brand, along with its partners like Israel, you can't walk this shit back. You just can't walk this back at all. And either there has to be, and the Democrats aren't going to do it. The Democrats aren't going to be the people to do it. Because the Democrats started this, okay? The Democrats started this with supporting the genocide in Gaza over the last 3 years, but by supporting the genocide in Gaza, it paved the way for Donald Trump to do this. It paved the way. And Donald Trump is just carrying on with what Kamala Harris and Joe Biden left him. And he's making it far worse, obviously. And he's making it far worse. But it's such a crazy time. The biggest surprise for me is that more hasn't happened. More hasn't happened. I truly think that by now, I would have thought America would have reacted in some bigger way. But it hasn't. And I think the Strait of Hormuz is still a big fucking deal. What happens in the Strait of Hormuz is ultimately going to decide where we go next. Is Donald Trump going to continue the war? Is Donald Trump going to continue the war? Or is he going to step back? Both options will be horrific for him. Stepping back means conceding. And continuing the war means another forever war. But continuing the war is also an escalation cycle. And I think we're pretty close to that moment where big decisions are going to have to be made. I think big decisions are going to have to be made sooner rather than later. Because the world is starting to find ways to adapt already without America. And I think that might be the reason why the violence will spread. Because America will feel extremely fragile in this moment. It is a transformational moment, folks. We've spoken about that fact for a long time. We've spoken about the fact that this moment here is such a unique moment where the world is moving from a unipolar type world to a multipolar world. We're seeing it happen in real time, essentially. And I don't know if America's going to just give it up that easy. I don't think America's going to give up its imperialist power that easily. I think we're in for quite a violent chapter of the world. I just have this feeling that something's got to pop. I just have this feeling that something has to pop. And you think he will continue the war? That's the thing, though. Like, I don't think he sees any other option other than, compromise. Oh, man. He will probably start another war too. Yeah. I think there's a chance of enough internal unrest that we just stop looking outwards. We hate doing so anyways. That might keep you safe long enough. A lot of Americans I talk to say they're waiting another couple of years. The basic primal framework of everyone is the election cycle, because when we're not voting, we're working all day. Hey, Roshan, welcome. Well, America is right now trying to show the world their violent imperialism with what they have recently in different countries, been doing in different countries, different parts of the world. Americans are too individualistic to actually rise up against anything. I don't even think this is a rise up moment. I think the wheels are in motion. I think America has set itself up for massive, for a huge loss here. And Donald Trump's reaction to what's happening in the Strait of Hormuz, I think people need to realize how much of an issue the Strait of Hormuz is it's still not open. It's still not open. He's still trying to find a way out or a way in to the war that could get them some sort of result, but it's just not happening. I just don't see how this can keep continuing, this status quo here. It doesn't make sense to me. Like, does it make sense to you guys? Oil is blocked. Oil prices are over $90 again. People are paying way more at the petrol pump, at gas stations. People are paying way more. People's living, like day-to-day living, is getting fucked even more than it was. Globally speaking, it just feels like the situation is about to explode. But it's not. It has been stopping U.S. bases from getting supplies. If Trump loses the House and the Senate, but it's over for him, they will impeach him daily. I think so, because of what's happening in the States with ICE and with people speaking out, gets arrested. American Army vet says stop the genocide and against Israel. They fucking arrested Spider-Man for confronting white supremacist instigators. I think we may have hit critical mass. How do I leave? Like, it is going to explode, but it won't be because of the American people. The people are so beat down here and overworked, they can't even think of rising up. All it takes is a few people to lose their shit, and others will be validated and follow suit. Yeah, I just feel like we're getting to a stage where, climate change, America's over leveraged. Okay, America's so over leveraged right now, or at least has all its eggs in one AI basket. If the AI bubble pops and money stops going into AI, that is going to have a massive impact on the American economy. Everything you see on the Dow is going to be fucked, because all of those gains are based on investments. Like, a lot of the gains, not all of it, a lot of the gains happening right now are because of AI, are because of what AI is doing. Money is just rolling in left, right, and center. It cannot fail right now. AI has to work. And that seems catastrophic to me. That seems absolutely catastrophic to me. What I think is going to happen is the rest of the world is just going to ignore the US, just treat us like we ended up treating South Africa. We need one reporter to go off in his face. Yeah, we need reporters to start reporting with some energy and some honesty, man. Oh, the crash is coming, no doubt. Hey, what is this, guys? Like, how is the world kind of stuck, like, in this weird moment where nothing is moving, like, things are getting worse, but it doesn't look bad, but it's bad, and it isn't getting any better. Like, we all can see all the bullshit. It's the extraction machine taking the last scraps from the people before it dies. Capitalism is the answer. That will never happen as long as billionaires own the mainstream media. Yeah, I mean, billionaires owning the mainstream media is such a... Yeah, I don't think mainstream media is ever going to, sound the alarm before shit hits the fan. It will be reporting after shit has hit the fan. We cannot rely on mainstream media to tell us what's happening. Like, we just can't. But to me, fundamentally, when I look at, let's look at where the Japanese and US dollar is. Japanese yen versus US dollar. Yeah, it's after market opens we'll know more, but it's almost at 159. So the intervention in the Japanese yen hasn't really worked. If we look at like 30-year bonds, the US 30-year bond yields, 30-year yield. Yeah, so this is the US. Like, we're talking about all-time highs we're coming to here. Let's look at all. Oh well, not like fucking 1982. Hold on. Like, this is the most it's been in the last 5 years. Let's look at all time and see where it lands. 2001. We're back to 30-year bond yield numbers that were in 2001. Like, this is and it's only heading up. Where's Japanese bond yields? Hold on, let's look at Japanese bond yields. So this is the 30-year bond yield in the US. Japanese bond yields. Holy shit. Look at Japan's bond yields. Is this one day? No, give me 1 month at least. Oh, bro, I don't want 5 years. There we go. 10 years. Japan is getting to levels it has never, it is at a level that it's never been. The borrowing costs for Japanese people is insane. Should we buy Japanese bonds? Yeah, it'll probably be the highest it'll pay out. But the thing is, Lula, I can't look at all time. I need to be a member. But the thing is, you just don't know if this is where it's going to end. It could just keep going up. And then, yeah, it's even Bloomberg today was like, the Treasury buyback isn't working. Like, this is Bloomberg. I'll leave in 10 minutes. But this is Bloomberg talking about the Treasury bond buybacks not working, because that's what America did recently.
We're going to talk about the bond market first, and grateful to have with us here a man who needs no introduction, one Tom Keene, of course, the co-anchor of Bloomberg Surveillance, Bloomberg Money as well. Tony Crescenzi joins us as well, portfolio manager at PIMCO. Tony, let me start with you. I just want to get your perspective here. It's been a couple of days since we had the surprise intervention by the Treasury Secretary announcing these changes to the bond buyback program. How are you processing it? How are you thinking about it? What does it signal about Mr. Bessent's approach here to stewarding the U.S. economy?
Well, it's a stabilizer is probably the best way to think about it. And when we think as investors about what to do, we have to really start with the principle of how to invest and what the fair value is. So how do you determine where a 10-year note should be, where a 30-year bond should be? What does a bond investor actually think? You know, there are a lot of headlines, but we have to still do the math. Think of the movie The Martian, remember? He said, just get to work and do the math. there's really three components of a bond yield that an investor thinks about each and every day. We're focusing a lot on, of course, on this technical operation, but the most important variable in that, and I'll go through each one really quickly, is the inflation component. It's the least variable when we think about what we should be compensated against as investors in a long-term security, because you are in it for a while, 10-year, 30-year period. A 2.5 is pretty reasonable if you think the Federal Reserve is serious about inflation. We're using something like the low twos in our systems, even though the Fed has a 2% inflation target. Now, I said just a second ago that's the most predictable component of the compensation a bond investor demands when buying a bond. That may seem difficult to imagine these days because inflation has been moving around, but it has been more stable. In the old Greenspan, the former Fed chair, and Volcker, also the former Fed chair who conquered inflation in the 70s, their old way of determining whether or not the inflation story was in the right place was to think about whether prices were stable, whether they had achieved price stability. There was no number. The Fed established a number under Chair Bernanke in 2012, the 2% inflation target that Kevin Warsh is focused on now. They had a way of thinking about it, and they both said it, Greenspan and Volcker, the same way. They said price stability occurs when price changes cease to influence household and business decision-making. Now, could we say that about the past few years? Probably, because the economy has been pretty good. Look at the stock market. It's been roaring. So that part of it looks pretty good. And I'll go through those others two in 30 seconds. We have the neutral.
So this is the 30-year bond yield. I want to show you. Again, the same pattern as the yen, right? USD. Let me just finish this line of thinking and then I'll head out. But the yen, the intervention happened then, and it's slowly but surely on the way up. Like on average, if you drew a trend line, it's up, right? It's up from when the intervention happened. And if you look at the 30-year bond yield, the intervention happened there, and look at it. It's almost back up to where the intervention was in the first place, before the intervention. So we are looking at a phenomena that America's trying to like intervene and make better, but it's not working. It's just not working. This is and the Dow is up. The S&P is up. Everything's up. Everything's up, including the bond yields, including everything. Everything's up. How the fuck is that possible? I just don't understand this at all. Something is fucked. Or everything's going incredibly well. I am leaning on the something is fucked side of the equation. Oh my gosh. Folks, let me tell you something. We are in a moment. We are in a moment of great transformation. The biggest con in history, Scary. The Dow is up. Something's not right. Something is not right. But in any case, I have to go pick up my son, and I will be back a bit later. The Dow, Department of War. Oh shit. Yeah, actually. Maple takes. Yes, let's go. Thank you so much, everybody. Cletus better not understand finance better than I do. I think the only thing to really understand here is everything looks good, which is why you should be worried. So there we are. Kakita, everybody. Thank you so much. I will see you soon. Yes. Take care, everyone. Ask Maple about his weird pizza preferences. Nah. I'm going to raid and run. I've got to get my son. But thank you so much, everyone. I will be back later on. Thank you, and have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. Okay? I'll see you soon. Here we go, guys. rating in 3, 2, 1. Please say hi to Maple Takes for me. Kia ora. Ka kite. Po Maria if you're going to bed. Morena if it's morning. I'll see you later. Ka kite, everybody. See you then.